I have been reincarnated as a goblin. I have already died 100 times before even being born, all because I awakened the goblin simulation system. In every simulation, I can choose the identity of my mother, whether it is a noble saintess of the empire, a sultry, seductive succubus, or a pure forest elf. Any of them can become my host mother. I can also awaken specific special abilities based on the race of the mother I choose. Furthermore, after dying in the simulation, I will inherit everything in reality, the skills I acquired during the simulation, and a certain amount of level progression based on my performance within that simulation. However, for my very first system simulation, the birth mother I chose was an F-class forest elf. At the same time, I obtained a skill of the forest elf race, Vitality Siphon. It allows me to drain life from targets in a weaker state than myself, absorbing their life energy to bolster my own status. I pried open my eyes, which were glued shut with viscous slime, and began to scan my surroundings. Right now, I am deep within a goblin breeding nest. Shifting my gaze slightly behind me, I saw her tied to a wooden rack. My elf mother, her breath coming in shallow gasps. She is disheveled and filthy now. Gone is the purity and grace typical of a forest elf. Her dull, downturned eyes are filled with despair for the life ahead. This weak, despondent forest elf slowly locks eyes with me, her goblin infant, looking at her own child. There is not a single trace of maternal love or kindness in her gaze, only a deep-seated hatred and a desperate longing for death. I paused for a moment at the sight, but I quickly understood why this forest elf was so cold toward her own offspring. So, with my infant goblin body, I crawled directly onto the forest elf's lap. Her first instinct was to push me away, but her powerless arms only lifted slightly before dropping back down in resignation. I pressed both hands directly against the skin of my forest elf mother. Immediately, I activated my skill, Vitality Siphon. My dear elf mother, I know you are in a world of pain right now, so let me send you on your way. Let us end all of this. In that instant, the forest elf's meager life force began pouring entirely into my body, improving my constitution. My skin took on a healthy glow, my internal organs developed, and my bones grew sturdy. She looked at me in utter disbelief, at the child who was helping her end her own life. This goblin infant born only moments ago. Thank you. The forest elf did not understand why I possessed the innate skill of the forest elf race, but at this moment, all she knew was that she could finally escape this hopeless, dark existence under my Vitality Siphon. The forest elf finally closed her eyes in peace, and I successfully completed the feat of matricide. Congratulations, host. You have killed your F-class elf mother. Gain 30 evolution points. I did not expect killing a single F-class creature to grant 30 points. However, to evolve into AG class, I still need 70 more evolution points. My gaze then shifted to the side, landing on a large huddle of other goblin infants. Slaughtering these creatures should allow me to level up and evolve. To gain the power to escape my impending crisis in reality, I must take action now. Furthermore, I can feel my body's current state has progressed from a crawling newborn goblin to the juvenile stage, meaning I can now walk on 2 legs, all thanks to the Vitality Siphon skill. The life energy I siphoned from the forest elf mother's body allowed my own physical form to undergo precocious development. I should have reached a growth stage equivalent to 1 month old now. So, in this dark, godforsaken breeding den, my vital status will definitely be higher than this dying female host and these helpless goblin infants waiting to be fed. And so I began my move. Although I have been reincarnated as a goblin, my mindset has not shifted that quickly yet. Therefore, I feel no pity whatsoever for these kinsmen. A goblin in each hand, I drained every last drop of their life energy into my own body. It forced my physical frame to develop and grow incessantly. The female hosts whose lives I ended all showed expressions of peaceful liberation before death. They saw me, this god among goblin infants, as an angel helping them escape the sea of despair. Thus, within that dim, stench-filled breeding den, fluorescent green life energy continuously flowed through the life siphon skill into my body. At the same time, the points gained from killing creatures, the evolution points also steadily increased. You have killed a goblin infant, gained 10 evolution points. You have killed a dying adult goblin, gained 20 evolution points. You have killed a despairing, weakened forest elf, gained 30 evolution points. System notifications rang out incessantly. I could feel my life status constantly surging upward. My physical development was also expanding. Soon, as the last despairing goblin infant was executed by my hand, the next moment, the system prompt echoed in my ear. Ding. Host has met the requirements for evolution. Initiate evolution. Without a moment's hesitation, I chose to evolve. I was also filled with great anticipation. I hurried to find a relatively clean spot to sit down. Once I evolve and rank up, then when I return to reality later, I can inherit the corresponding attributes, levels, and even skills. 10 minutes later, I took a deep breath. I immediately looked at my newly evolved goblin body. I can clearly feel that right now, I have already shed the fragile infant stage. I have reached the goblin cub period. Stamina, strength, speed, and even perception. It is a completely different experience than before. Currently, my species is still common goblin, but my strength has already reached G class. With 150 evolution points, I am only 50 away from F class. At the same time, I have gained a new skill, tool crafting. I can utilize most seemingly useless items to craft tools for hunting and survival. I casually picked up a stone from the ground, a bit larger than my palm, and a wooden stick longer than a person. Then I ripped down some vines growing on the damp cave walls. Very quickly, a simple stone axe taller than this goblin cup was gripped firmly in my hand. It can be used for self-defense or offense. Regarding this crude weapon, I refined using my skill. I was not too disappointed. Instead, I took it and immediately left the spot, heading straight toward the cave entrance, now that I have killed the breeding hosts. Within this goblin den, as well as these newborn infants, if any other adult goblins come in and see this scene, they will inevitably kill me. This is a death crisis no different from reality. However, the current me possesses the skills and weapons to fight back. And right now, the only thing I need to do is complete the task assigned by the system. I have successfully evolved to G class, but the monsters I need to kill, I have only got 29. I'm still short by 1. This is the mission issued by the simulation system. I need to hunt down 30 monsters. Upon completion, I can inherit these skills back into reality. I did not panic. I began to explore the area outside the cave. Outside the cave lay a vast forest. Strangely, there were no goblin guards at the entrance of the breeding chamber. I have no idea where they have all gone. Where did all the adult goblins from this nest disappear to? Filled with doubt, I returned to the nest and dragged out my own forest elf mother. After hastily burying her remains underground, I ran toward the only path leading to the village. I followed the trail all the way to the main base of the goblin nest. The moment I arrived, the thick metallic scent of blood hit my nose. And right now, the ground is littered with goblins. Their corpses are lying in pools of blood. It is obvious an external enemy has invaded this nest. My first thought was this. I looked at an adult goblin lying in a pool of blood nearby, barely clinging to life. Turns out he was just playing dead. The wound on his chest, which should have been fatal, had not actually taken his life yet. Right now, this adult goblin is struggling to prop himself up with both hands in the blood. His face is contorted as he prepares to flee. Seeing this, I dragged the stone axe, which was taller than his own body, and quietly circled behind this playing dead fellow, without giving him a single chance to notice me. I ended his life with one swing of the stone axe. Finally, the system mission is complete. I breathed a sigh of relief as if a great weight had been lifted. I felt like sitting on the ground to rest for a bit, to reward myself for all the constant killing. Unexpectedly, just as I was preparing to leave this place, a chilling gaze suddenly flashed from the bushes to my side. Terrified, I quickly turned to look, only to see a figure clad clad in full armor, a towering knight with sword and shield, his defense seemingly impenetrable, emerged from the bushes dragging a goblin corpse. I recognized him instantly, the natural enemy of all goblins, the Goblin Slayer. Shock rippled through my heart. I did not expect this world to actually have a killer dedicated solely to hunting goblins. I turned and bolted immediately, but in the next second, everything went black. My consciousness abruptly snapped back to reality. Lying in the tree hollow, I gasped for air repeatedly. Damn it. A goblin hatchling is just too weak. To think that the biggest obstacle in this world would be the Goblin Slayer. I must speed up my growth. I can't let him find me. I do not know the differences between that simulated world and the actual world I am in now. But to play it safe, I will choose to be conservative. I have decided that until I reach a certain level of strength, I won't show my face much. At that moment, the system announced the end of the mission. Ding. You have completed the Goblin Life simulation. Beginning settlement. In this simulation, you remain very calm. Furthermore, you extracted excellent skills from your birth mother at the start. You quickly ended all life in the breeding nest and successfully evolved. However, you were unlucky enough to encounter the Goblin Slayer. Rating for this session, C rank. Reward, 50% attribute inheritance. Skills, life drawn and tool crafting. And one additional simulation attempt. The rewards look decent. I can even continue with another simulation. I am satisfied with this result, but I am in no rush to jump back into another simulation. Instead, I scan my surroundings, deciding to take stock of the gains from the simulation first. After receiving the simulation rewards, my combat power in reality has increased to G+. I have grown from a goblin hatchling into the goblin child stage, but I am still quite a way off from becoming an adult, whether it is the simulation or the real world. I know that only the matured can truly survive. Without hesitation, I clicked to continue the simulation. This time, the host mother I chose was an F-class corrupted dark elf. As soon as I made my choice, my vision shifted and I arrived at a dark, foul-smelling and damp cave. The air was thick with a familiar stench of blood. Shrill, weak cries of infants echoed, mingled with hideous, guttural laughter. Feeling uneasy, I snapped my eyes open. I found myself inside a massive goblin nesting colony. A swarm of short, dark green goblins were crawling all over females of various races, whose eyes were hollow and filled with despair. This simulation's starting point is a bit different. I realized that I had bypassed the infant stage and started the simulation directly as a goblin child. I intended to scan my surroundings, but then I realized something shocking. I was currently perched on top of a dark elf with obsidian skin. Her once silvery hair was now matted and filthy gray. Her clothes were in tatters, barely covering her, and her vacant stare was a mask of stagnant despair. I too was not wearing a single scrap of beast hide. In that moment, it was painfully obvious what had transpired. Goblins truly are a most vile and wicked race of monsters. Suddenly, everything clicked. I immediately moved away from the dark elf. Who was the mother of this body? To her, I was likely just another finished piece of demonic filth. Unable to meet the dark elf's gaze, I immediately began to draw my skills. Let us see if this goblin simulation start gives me a different advantage. Simulation, reincarnated as a common goblin. Skill acquired from Dark Elf Tribe, Wood Mastery. Longbows in your hands will reach their full potential. Your accuracy against prey has reached a staggering 90%. Following that, the missions for this simulation were issued. Host, please kill more than 30 monsters to gain evolution points and reach F-class. Additionally, evade the impending attack from the Goblin Slayer. Survive for 10 minutes. A moment later, from outside the cave, a wave of choking thick white fog billowed in. I realized instantly, the Goblin Slayer is here. An ambush, damn it. Cough, cough, cough. The smoke is too thick. We are going to die. We are all going to die. Curse those invaders. Everyone, grab your weapons and repel the attack. Right then, the goblin breeding grounds were filled with the shrieks of goblins. Faced with such a sudden assault, they had not even processed what was happening. They could only howl and scramble for their weapons. I did not expect the Goblin Slayer to show up so soon. It felt like a total anomaly. However, the rolling clouds of smoke, filled with irritating dust, kept stinging my nostrils. I was afraid of being choked out by this flower-infused smoke, so I quickly grabbed a rag from the floor and covered my nose. That made it much more bearable. At the same time, the already weakened and dying females of various tribes were also being choked by the dense smoke. They coughed violently, their faces turning pale. Seeing this, I quickly looked back at the dark elf who birthed me. She looked extremely frail, her lips turning white. It was obvious she was on the verge of suffocating from the smoke. I hesitated, unsure if I should save her. After all, the Goblin Slayer has launched his raid. If she does not die, she will likely be rescued. Despite my hesitation, in the end, I turned back and lifted her frail body onto my back, carrying her away from this cave occupied by choking smoke, moving steadily along the stone walls, heading toward the exit where the haze had not yet spread. At the very moment I approached the exit, a goblin, directly in front of me, was struck square in the chest by a long arrow. His pupils dilated instantly, dying with a face full of resentment. Watching from further back, I immediately realized what was happening. At the same time, numerous other goblins were scrambling, desperately rushing toward the exit to save their lives. However, they all ended up the same way, arrows through the chest or head. They died right there at the threshold of the mountain. It seems the Goblin Slayer is likely waiting right above the exit. I did not expect an ambush at the exit. There's no escape that way. I immediately took the dark elf on my back and dropped her near the exit. This spot leads outside, with fresh air flowing in. She should not die. Having dealt with that distraction, I turned around and headed back inside. Along the way, I encountered many goblins fleeing in panic, but because of the toxic smoke, some had not even found the exit yet, before collapsing unconscious on the ground. Without help from their kin, only death awaited them. As for me, by wearing a tattered cloth mask, I could effectively filter out the dust and smoke. Furthermore, I possessed the life absorption skill. So now, while I headed back toward the original breeding grounds, I absorbed the life energy of these dying goblins along the path, constantly forcing my physical form to evolve and adapt, thereby resisting death by suffocation from the thin air. System, you have killed an adult goblin. System, gain 30 evolution points. System, you have killed a goblin child. System, gain 20 evolution points. All along the way, as the system notifications kept popping up, the number of goblins I scavenged grew larger and larger. My presence was fully noticed by several fleeing goblins. They noticed that every time a faint green light glowed, this goblin child, which was me, became increasingly vibrant and healthy. I did not even show symptoms of lung suffocation from the smoke. In an instant, their naturally cunning and fierce eyes turned greedy. Weakly, they gripped their weapons and moved toward me. Toward their immature kin. It was obvious they wanted to kill me, to seize whatever means I had to stay alive. Surrounded by 3 adult goblins. I had not expected that, after avoiding the Goblin Slayer, I would be targeted by my own adult kin. I did not know whether to laugh or cry. I truly admired the vile nature of the goblin race. But against these half-dead, weakened adults, even if they were fully grown, I was not the least bit panicked. I backed directly against the cave wall, ensuring these treacherous goblins could not sneak up behind me. At the same time, from the corpse of a fallen goblin, I hoisted a heavy club with both hands, ready to strike back at these wretched adults. When those goblins saw that I, a mere, immature child, actually dared to resist them, they could not help but let out a mocking laugh. They thought I was punching way above my weight class. So, clutching their daggers and short swords, they lunged at me with sudden speed. I gripped the heavy club tightly, barely managing to parry a sudden, short sword strike from one of the adult goblins. But in the next second, another goblin attacked in tandem, forcing me to scramble backward to the side. Simultaneously, the third goblin swung its dagger, lunging straight for me. I narrowly dodged that extremely dangerous strike. I had not realized that even though these goblins were near death, they still possessed enough strength to kill me. I scanned the area with a cold, predatory gaze, staring intently at my fellow goblins. I dropped my club and bolted without a word. The goblins never expected me to just turn tail and run. There was not a hint of hesitation in my step. With a furious roar, they immediately scrambled to give chase. However, due to the lack of oxygen, their legs felt like lead, making every step a struggle. Eventually, their pace slowed to a crawl. Their dark green faces began to turn a sickly shade of purple. Finally, suffocating and helpless, they collapsed, gasping for air. Meanwhile, up ahead, I suddenly doubled back. The goblins were overjoyed. They immediately put on tearful, pathetic expressions as they looked at me, hoping I would save my own kind. But as I looked at these groveling adult goblins, being one of them, I knew better than anyone. I knew their cunning and malevolent nature all too well. So I drew the longbow I had scavenged while running. With a sharp whistle, arrows flew in rapid succession, sending these short-sighted goblins to their graves. I turned back to finish off those who had fainted from hypoxia, the ones who had not quite kicked the bucket yet. It was time for a frenzy of harvesting evolution points. At the same time, at the exit, seeing no goblins emerge for a long time, the Goblin Slayer realized the smokescreen had successfully neutralized the goblins. It was time to go down and reap them one by one. So donning his mask, he descended into the goblin nest, sword and shield in hand. Meanwhile, completely unaware of his arrival, I was staring at a massive goblin, built like a small mountain, preparing for the kill. Deep inside the goblin nest, in what used to be the breeding grounds, I watched the hobgoblin, stuck in another exit. He was an evolved version of a common goblin. Not only was his size different, but his stamina, strength, and defense were all significantly enhanced. Usually, a hobgoblin like this is a high-tier combatant within the nest, or perhaps a high-ranking elder, a master wielding immense power. Looking at this hobgoblin, I sensed he was at least F class, possibly E class, or even D class. Of course, I could not be sure of his exact rank, as I lacked the ability to see through others' levels and attributes. Save me, you stupid common goblin. Have you forgotten who your king is? The hobgoblin, seeing a mere goblin ignoring him, immediately bellowed in rage. However, a thicker wave of smoke followed, causing him to choke violently. With a face turning purple, he glared at me and spoke again. I am the king of this nest, your leader. You dim-witted whelp, your king commands you. Assist me in escaping this cursed hole immediately. The hobgoblin endured the suffocation from the smoke. Due to his superior stamina, he could still hold out for a while, but if he stayed in the smoke-filled cave any longer, he could not guarantee he would not suffocate to death. Looking at the bloated, 3-meter-tall behemoth, and hearing his arrogant plea for help, I narrowed my eyes. King, may I ask, what is your current rank? Rank. You idiotic goblin brat. I am a powerful hobgoblin of the E class. Seeing that I actually dared to underestimate him, he could not help but roar in anger, but the acrid smoke, once again, due to his agitation, flooded into his chest, leaving him in a coughing fit. Seeing me still standing there, unmoved, the hobgoblin's gaze turned sinister and cunning. My subject, hurry and rescue your great king. If you just help me escape this wretched hole, afterward, I guarantee I will give you countless women and all the food you can eat. But in the next second, I abruptly threw back, a sentence that left him utterly stunned. Too bad, big guy. I am not saving you. Immediately after, without a moment's hesitation, I activated my archery mastery skill, piercing the hobgoblin's right eye. A second later, another sharp arrow followed in close pursuit, blinding his remaining good left eye. Ah, it hurts so much. Damn it, damn it, damn it. You filthy goblin brat. How dare you blind both my eyes? The intense agony instantly robbed the hobgoblin of his entire field of vision. Right now, everything before him was pitch black, unable to see a thing. Furthermore, the endless thick smoke seemed to come alive at this very moment, relentlessly surging into his nose and mouth, forcing its way down into his chest cavity, squeezing out every last bit of oxygen in his body. At this instant, the hobgoblin's face turned a deep shade of purple, leaving him unable to even let out a roar. He felt his head spinning, his entire body slipping out of his control. Just die already. A smirk played on my lips as my eyes gleamed with cunning. Simultaneously, I loosed one more arrow, firing it straight into the gasping hobgoblin's mouth, completely piercing through his throat. At this moment, the hobgoblin could no longer make a sound, not even a breath. He remained there, eyes wide open, impaled by sharp arrows, blood streaming relentlessly from his sockets, his face turning purple, dying directly from suffocation. You have killed a hobgoblin. Gain 400 evolution points. Ding. Evolution requirements met. Initiate evolution. Hearing the system prompt, I gave a slight shake of my head and declined. It was not that I did not want to evolve, but evolution takes time. I can evolve later, after I return to reality, and inherit the experience. It won't be too late. Right now, the only thing that matters is survival. The system has issued a quest. I have already completed the hunt for 30 monsters. Now, I must survive for 10 minutes. Under the assault of the Goblin Slayer. About 7 or 8 minutes should have passed by now. Scanning the surroundings, the Goblin Slayer has not arrived yet. I muttered to myself, I have not fulfilled the second condition for the reward yet. I must evade the Goblin Slayer's certain kill strike for now. Actually, I have no idea what rank the Goblin Slayer is, nor what my odds would be if we clashed. However, adhering to the principle of avoiding unnecessary trouble, I chose to evade, spotted a cave exit, and headed straight for it. But suddenly, the whistle of a blade slicing through air echoed behind me. Before I could even react, an agonizing pain shot through my right leg in the next second. I collapsed to my knees, strength draining away, losing my basic ability to flee. Damn it. I have been hit in the knee by an arrow. The smoke was too thick. It threw off my aim. Simultaneously, a muffled voice came from behind. I glared back in fury. Clad in heavy, impenetrable armor, stood a towering knight with sword, shield, and bow. I recognized the opponent instantly, the Goblin Slayer. How did he catch up so fast? The following is the novel segment. To see what happens next, please download the QQ Reader API. Searching for Simulation Spirit. The first result found is and now it is starting to go numb. Jiyu-kun realized immediately the Goblin Slayer had coated his arrowheads in poison. Even if he did not die from the impact, the toxin would finish the job. I won't miss with the next shot. At that moment, the Goblin Slayer sounded the horn of death once more. Jiyu Chen's heart tightened. A cold shiver ran down his spine. The time limit must be nearly up. He absolutely could not afford to fail at such a critical juncture. Otherwise, all his efforts would go down the drain. I underestimated the Goblin Slayer. Jiyu-kun had wasted too much time dealing with the hobgoblin. That delay led to his knee being struck by that heavy sword, severely crippling his movement. And now, with the poison from the blade paralyzing him, Jiyu-kun felt his entire body becoming impossible to move. It was obvious. He would not be able to dodge the Goblin Slayer's next poisoned arrow. Cold sweat trickled down his dark green face. Jiyu-kun panted incessantly, staring straight at the sharp tip aiming for him, knowing it could fly at any second. In this instant, Jiyu-kun felt it, the overwhelming pressure radiating from the Goblin Slayer. He finally understood why, in this world, the Goblin Slayer is known as the natural enemy of all goblins, an impenetrable defense, a calculated conservative offense, ruthless pragmatic schemes, and a cold, unfeeling logic. Even other monsters, should they cross him, would likely lose their lives. However, He also carried a pain buried deep within his soul, the memory of his childhood, where he witnessed his sister, who tried to protect him, surrounded by a horde of leering goblins, brutalized and humiliated until she died. Ji-Yu-chun continued to gasp for air. Between the spreading toxin and the thickening smoke, he was powerless to move, but he had devised a dangerous gamble. Goblin Slayer. You had a beloved sister, did not you? Suddenly, this monster, appearing as nothing but a goblin child, spoke in the human tongue. The Goblin Slayer paused for a split second, the fingers pulling the bowstring tightened reflexively. Those words had struck a raw nerve. It seems this one has the potential to be a goblin king. He must be eliminated. Making a swift judgment, the Goblin Slayer lamented. Today, he could remove a terrifying future threat. At this very moment, his resolve to kill Ji-Yu-chun became absolute. But Ji-Yu-chun's next words filled him with an unimaginable shock and rage. Heh heh heh. Back then, all you could do was watch, right? Your precious, sweet sister, ravaged to death by a pack of goblins while she was still alive. You are just a pathetic coward, no better than a goblin yourself. Ji-Yu-chun let out a loud, mocking sneer. In the next second, a poisoned arrow, swift enough to pierce the wind, whistled through the air. It cut a trail through the smoke, aiming directly for Ji-Yu-chun's skull. Yet the Goblin Slayer's shot actually strayed. It missed Ji-Yu-chun's head, grazing past his neck instead. He had missed his mark again. Pant, pant, pant. Ji-Yu-chun saw that the enemy was wavering. His plan to harass the Goblin Slayer was actually working. He immediately used every ounce of his strength to crawl along the ground. He successfully scrambled out of the cave entrance. After the Goblin Slayer's third poisoned arrow pierced his calf, he narrowly escaped the fatal crisis of being skewered by a sword. Task completed. Return to reality. In an instant, those 10 minutes of long, agonizing despair finally came to an end. His face pale and weak, Ji-Yu-chun did not hesitate for a second. He chose to leave immediately. He vanished from the spot instantly. By the time the Goblin Slayer rushed over, he saw only an empty, silent tunnel. Beneath the visor, his eyes suddenly flashed with a terrifying red light. His aura instantly became sharp and murderous. Consciousness returning to reality. Ji-Yu-chun lay in the hollow of a tree, gasping for air repeatedly. Although he had returned to normal, his body still felt the lingering suffocation of the smoke, as well as the paralysis caused by the poison. His entire arm lay limp and useless on the ground. He could not move a single muscle. It took several minutes before Ji-Yu-chun finally began to slowly recover. He had escaped a brush with death. Damn it. I never expected that in this isekai world. My greatest threat would be that damn Goblin Slayer. Finally catching his breath, Ji-Yu-chun began to curse under his breath as he sat up. I can't believe my luck is this rotten. That is twice now I have run into the Goblin Slayer. And he is just as dangerous as the legends say. The first time, he wiped me out. The second time, I barely survived by the skin of my teeth. If I ever encounter him in reality, the consequences would be unthinkable. Ji-Yu-chun knew exactly where he stood. With my current strength, winning against the Goblin Slayer is a total pipe dream. I have to play it smart and retreat for now. Run away first, focus on leveling up, and then we will talk. Increasing my power is an absolute necessity. At that moment, the system responded. You have ended your life as a goblin. Simulation over. Calculating score. Evaluation. Your performance this time was surprisingly impressive. In the body of a goblin hatchling, you slew many beings. Furthermore, you harvested the lives of high-tier goblins, including a great goblin, gained a massive amount of evolution points. You even saved the life of your birth mother, the Dark Elf. Lastly, you narrowly escaped the hunt of the Goblin Slayer. Reward, 70% attribute inheritance. Skill, sword mastery. 2 simulation opportunities. Looking at the system's summary, Ji-Yu-chun breathed a sigh of relief. He had not expected that saving his birth mother would be a factor in boosting his evaluation score. I will have to give more thought to my relationship with my mother in the future. Host has met the conditions for evolution. Initiate evolution. The system prompt popped up again. It seems the evolution points and experience from the simulation have successfully carried over. Initiate evolution. Ji-Yu-chun looked at the prompt, then checked the time of day. It was already afternoon, but the sun was still blazing. He decisively chose to evolve. Host, Ji-Yu-chun, race, adult goblin. Status, robust physique. Weight 60 kilograms, height 145 centimeters, combat power F, skill, life drain. Tool crafting, sword mastery. Evolution points, 350 per 800, gain points by hunting creatures. An hour passed. At this very moment, Ji-Yu-chun slowly awakens from his slumber. The virtual interface of the system panel flickers into his mind. Ji-Yu-chun can clearly see the changes within himself. His current self has successfully matured from a goblin hatchling into a full-grown adult. Even his vital signs have reached a state of peak robustness. His weight has reached a burly, sturdy level. As for his height, it remains the unchangeable trait of the goblin race. However, a newly emerged skill deeply captures Ji-Yu-chun's attention. Staring at this peculiar skill, Play Dead, Ji-Yu-chun feels a spark of curiosity. Play Dead, a signature survival skill of the goblin race. You can choose to feign death. When activated, all bodily functions will undergo a drastic transformation. Heartbeat stops. Blood flow slows to a crawl. The complexion turns a deathly purple. All to achieve the perfect deception of the enemy. Reading through the skill description, Ji-Yu-chun senses that this is not a skill for regular combat. It is purely for survival. Of course, against cold and rational adventurers like a goblin slayer, playing dead is utterly useless. It would not do a damn thing. But for those wet behind the ears rookies, it is a guaranteed lethal trap. Ji-Yu-chun silently commits the survival skill to memory. He then decides that it is time to deal with the crisis in reality. He pokes his head out of the tree hollow and looks down at the black wolf waiting relentlessly below. Ji-Yu-chun's gaze turns predatory and fierce. I am going to kill you, you smelly dog. Within the giant tree forest, the black wolf guarding the base of the massive tree suddenly seems to sense something. It looks upward. Unexpectedly, it sees the very prey it has been hunting. The goblin is currently clinging tightly to the tree, crawling along. The black wolf immediately bares its fangs in a mocking sneer. Clearly, the black wolf believes that its prey is terrified of being caught and is desperately trying to find a way to escape. However, the black wolf is not worried in the slightest. After all, it is camping right at the bottom. The goblin will eventually be forced down by hunger. When that time comes, it won't just eat him. It will indulge in a slow, agonizing slaughter. It will show him the true terror of the black wolf clan. Hey, After observing for a moment, the black wolf completely ignores him. It curls up at the base of the tree to sleep. Simultaneously, Ji Yu-chen, reincarnated as a goblin, is high above. He is crawling across the branches of the colossal tree. Cautiously, he begins gathering leaves and branches. Of course, he heard the mocking sneer of the black wolf below. It is obvious. The beast thinks I am just struggling for a few more moments of life, thinking the final outcome is nothing more than being hunted and devoured. Ji Yu-chen's expression darkens with murderous intent. This black wolf has been stalking me since I was first abandoned in this forest. It has been eyeing me silently from the start. If I had not sensed the danger back then, and fled immediately, I might have already become a vengeful spirit in its gut, dead for the second time. Now, this hungry wolf is fixated on me, refusing to leave the base of the tree, waiting with such sickening patience. This fills Ji Yu-chen with a cold, burning rage. I did not expect this wolf to push me so far. If it really wants to eat me, then there is no other way. There will be a price to pay. He must pay the price for his arrogance. A sharp, cold light flickered in his eyes. After 2 simulations, Ji Yu-chen has finally attained a basic level of combat strength. His rank has reached F class. He has evolved into an adult form. Though still a common goblin breed, he now possesses 4 distinct skills. Against a black wolf, which is also around F rank, Ji Yu-chen remains brimming with confidence. He feels the beast is already a dead man walking. Just wait for your death, he muttered through gritted teeth. Ji Yu-chen carried a bundle of branches and bark, collected from the giant trees back into the hollow. It is currently afternoon. Ji Yu-chen did not want to linger until nightfall. After all, this tree hollow clearly has an owner. For safety's sake, he must leave before the sun goes down. Quickly, using his tool crafting skill, a crude but functional wooden longbow appeared in his dark green hands. The bow's body was a thick, sturdy branch. The string was made from tough, fibrous leaves found nearby, lacking any iron or metal. Ji Yu-chen had to sharpen the resin-coated wood to serve as his lethal bolts. While this significantly reduced his attack power, Ji Yu-chen still possessed sword mastery, with a 90% hit rate. As long as he targeted the black wolf's vitals, he could still take it down. Preparations complete. Ji Yu-chen quietly poked his ghastly green head out. A pair of cunning eyes scanned from the shadows. The black wolf was still sprawled lazily under the tree. It was completely oblivious to the approaching danger. He grinned, baring his teeth. Time for the hunter to become the hunted. A man of few words, Ji Yu-chen took action. He pulled the bowstring back with all his might. In total silence, he released his grip. Instantly, the wooden bolt whistled through the air, aiming straight for the black wolf's eye. With the buff from his sword mastery, Ji Yu-chen's sneak attack was a direct hit. The previously lethargic black wolf was suddenly jolted by an agonizing pain. Everything went dark in its right eye. It howled in sheer agony. Its fur stood on end as it leapt up, but before it could even process what happened, the next wooden bolt was already flying. It grazed the wolf's shoulder, narrowly missing its remaining left eye. Terrified, the black wolf looked up at the tree. Just as expected, the scrawny goblin it had been hunting earlier was now perched on a branch, aiming a bow at it. Damn, I missed. Moving targets are indeed harder to hit. The black wolf could not believe its prey had actually turned the tables to hunt it down. The creature even had a weapon now. It let out a furious roar. Ji Yu-chen merely clicked his tongue with a savage look to prevent the black wolf from escaping. He immediately fired another wooden bolt. Unable to react in time, the center of the black wolf's backside was struck dead on by Ji Yu-chen's arrow. It shrieked instantly, realizing it had messed with the wrong opponent. It turned to flee immediately. However, because of the projectile lodged behind, every time it tried to pick up the pace, a wave of excruciating pain would surge through it. The wolf endured the agony, struggling desperately to escape. But how could Ji Yu-chan possibly let his chance for revenge slip away? He relentlessly unleashed a volley of the wooden bolts he had prepared. Arrows riddled the black wolf's backside, leaving a trail of fresh blood. Its movements were growing sluggish, but since no vital organs were hit, and fueled by a desperate will to live, the black wolf was on the verge of escaping. Seeing this, Ji Yu-chan leapt from the tree, bow in hand, and gave chase relentlessly. His expression was cold and ruthless. Take this and this. Finally, after a barrage of shots, under Ji Yu-chen's vengeful pursuit, the black wolf, now looking like a pincushion, collapsed to the ground in bitter defeat. Ji Yu-chan caught up immediately, driving a wooden sword straight through its eye. He scrambled its brains completely, acting all high and mighty. We're not you, chasing me for so long. You are just a filthy stray dog. He began kicking and punching the carcass. Ji Yu-chan himself did not realize if it was the goblin genes taking over, but he was becoming increasingly frenzied and brutal. Only when the wolf stopped making any sound did his rage finally simmer down. You have slain an adult black wolf. Gained 100 evolution points. HMPH. Better luck in your next life. Don't run into me again. Alerted by the system, Ji Yu-chan realized the black wolf was truly dead. Relieved of the burden, he picked up a nearby stone and began smashing the wolf's teeth and fangs out for urgent use in this desolate giant tree forest. If a weak goblin like Ji Yu-chen wants to survive, he must learn to use tools like a human. The wolf's fangs make for sharp arrowheads, while its claws can serve as daggers for skinning. With his tool crafting skill, Ji Yu-chen's handiwork was becoming masterful. He quickly fashioned a wooden sword with a sharp tip and several small daggers. Meanwhile, as Ji Yu-chen was butchering the wolf meat to prepare his rations, he heard human voices coming from the distance. 2 men and 1 woman adventurers. In this world, the humans who fight against monsters are collectively known as adventurers. Their ranks range from porcelain, obsidian, steel, sapphire, emerald, ruby, to bronze, silver, gold, and orichalcum. Beyond the orichalcum rank, a level achieved by only a handful in history, they are commonly recognized as heroes. Bronze, silver, and gold are elite combatants, possessing both strength and reputation. They are the creme de la creme. White stone and black jade represent the middle tier, but there is a significant gap in their numbers. The succession is struggling. Porcelain and obsidian are the rookies, unaccustomed to the dangers of adventuring. This is their most perilous phase. Ji Yu-chan did not expect that he would encounter human adventurers this early in his journey. He immediately grew tense. In the next second, following the lead's comment, Ji Yu-chen's gaze turned sharp, Look, there is a stray goblin right here. Ji-Yukon was stunned. He had been spotted by this adventurer party, and from their use of the word stray, it was clear they viewed him as nothing more than prey to be hunted. Oh. I did not expect to actually find a lone goblin here, and surprisingly, it even managed to kill a black wolf. At that moment, from the other side of the bushes, a man stepped out. He was a shield bearer clad in leather armor. Looking at Ji-Yu-chun, who was covered in fresh blood, they spoke with curiosity. But looking at his wretched state, it is highly likely that he barely won a Pyrrhic victory against a black wolf. In other words, this lone goblin right now is in a weakened and exhausted state, without wearing any armor, but carrying a longsword resting on his shoulder. The warrior, acting like a try-hard hero, joked. It was clear he had his eyes set on Ji-Yu-chun. What a hideous goblin. I absolutely despise goblins. These ugly monsters. This vile race. Why did the gods even bother creating them? At this time, walking at the back of the team, was a blonde girl being protected by the two men. The mage had a look of pure disgust, rolling her eyes at Ji-Yu-chun. She utterly loathed his hideous goblin appearance. Hee, what does it matter? He is just unlucky enough to run into us. Let us just send him to the afterlife. Then we can head back to the guild. The warrior spoke nonchalantly. It just so happens the place we went today did not have any cunning rabbits. Finding this goblin and a black wolf carcass can be considered compensation for our losses. The shield bearer stared intently at Ji-Yu-chun, as well as the skinned black wolf corpse. His eyes were glowing with greed. Hurry up and do it. I hate goblins the most. Don't let it pollute my sight. After saying that, the mage girl gripped her simple staff with both hands and began chanting an incantation. Seeing their female companion prepare to attack, the warrior and shield bearer exchanged glances and began closing in on Ji-Yu-chun. Damn it. Rage boiled in his heart. Ji-Yu-chun had not expected to be this unlucky, to encounter human adventurers the moment he stepped out. The team was practically screaming about their bad luck, but the arrogance and insolence of these adventurers made Ji-Yu-chun extremely displeased. They saw him as nothing but fragile and hideous, a target to be killed simply because they did not like his face. Such arrogance was truly over the top. Of course, Ji-Yu-chun also sensed that taking on 3 human adventurers at once was not very realistic. His current strength was not high enough yet, and he lacked skills suited for a head-on confrontation. With that thought, Ji-Yu-chun immediately dumped the black wolf carcass and fled. He dove straight into the bushes to escape. The warrior and shield bearer were stunned for a moment. Don't let that goblin get away. You useless pieces of trash. The mage immediately stopped her spell. She did not expect the goblin she wanted dead to actually run. She stomped her feet in a fit of rage, complaining about her 2 brain-dead teammates. Haha, Lily, do not be mad. With his injuries, how could he possibly outrun us? The warrior coaxed the impatient girl. Having said that, he and the shield bearer chased after the direction Ji-Yu-chun fled. Little did they know, Ji-Yu-chun had not actually left. Instead, using his small stature and dark green camouflage, he used the bushes to quietly circle back. Behind Lily, the mage girl, hiding in the thicket, a pair of cunning and predatory eyes, stared intensely at the huffing mage, who remained on the spot, stomping her feet. As expected, these rookie adventurers are still too green. They actually fell for it and chased after me like idiots, leaving their companion all alone. A cold sneer formed in his heart. From the very beginning, Ji-Yu-chun could tell by their aura and gear the overall level of this adventurer party. Most of them were likely at the porcelain or obsidian rank. Newbies like these are standard matches for G-class or F-class monsters, but they had not accounted for an F-class goblin like Ji-Yu-chun, who possessed such cunning and malice. Right now, they did not even realize they had walked right into his trap. Licking his dry lips with a long tongue, Ji-Yu-chun never intended to have too many entanglements with humans. After all, he was currently the god of goblins, and he had no idea if the goblin slayer even existed in this world. Thus, he adhered to the philosophy of keeping a low profile and farming. But for those who dared to provoke him first, things would be different. Ji-Yu-chun was determined to make these arrogant adventurers who looked down on him pay the ultimate price. A chilling glint flashed in his eyes. After confirming the other adventurers had moved far away, Ji-Yu-chun lunged directly from the bushes. What is going on? In an instant, the mage Lily was caught off guard. The goblin that was clearly fleeing had suddenly ambushed her from behind. Terrified, she wanted to scream for help, but facing Ji-Yu-chun as he pounced with bared broken teeth, she was paralyzed by fear. As a rookie, who had barely been on a few adventures, how could she handle such direct danger? So, panicked, Lily desperately tried to wave her staff to cast a spell. However, the long casting time was nowhere near enough to counter Ji-Yu-chun's attack. The strike of this calculated, terrifying goblin landed. Ji-Yu-chun slapped the staff right out of Lily's hand, and then slammed his entire body into her, pinning her to the ground as she cried out in pain. You are still too green, little lady. Ji-Yu-chun bared his teeth with a sinister smile. Lily's pupils dilated in pure terror. She could not believe this monster could actually speak human tongue. But in the next second, all she saw was a clenched green fist flying toward her. Everything went dark, and she lost consciousness. He knocked out the mage girl with one clean punch. Fearing the other two might double back, Ji-Yu-chun dragged her into the thick undergrowth. He then picked up the bow and arrows he had just crafted, his gaze turning cold. Dealing with these novice adventurers is far easier than dealing with another goblin squad. With that, Ji-Yu-chun tied up his captive and hid her well. Taking up his bow, he stealthily trailed the direction the other two had gone. Before long, 2 horrified screams echoed from the distance. Soon after, Ji-Yu-chun the goblin returned in triumph, now wearing some slightly loose leather armor and wielding a shield and longsword. Quite a bountiful harvest. Looking at the unconscious girl on the ground, the human adventurer's weapons, and the butchered black wolf meat and fur, Ji-Yu-chun felt that this haul was excellent. He could truly feel how useful the strength provided by the witch was. Today it helped him take down a black wolf. and an obsidian rank adventurer party. As for why they were obsidian rank, Ji Yu-chun could only say, aside from this useless mage girl, the warrior and the shield bearer did have some combat experience. They had reached the obsidian level, but unfortunately, in their naivety, they ran into someone who used schemes and trickery. Someone worse than the Goblin Slayer. It is as if they do not even belong to the same human race. Ji Yu-kun chuckled as he weighed his options regarding a new shelter. With so much loot, there was no way he could haul it all back up into the trees. But while Ji Yu-kun was deep in thought, a sudden long roar pierced the air. He could feel it, a shockwave that reverberated through the entire giant tree forest. That was the cry of a griffin. In that very moment, a sharp, piercing screech suddenly erupted. Ji Yu-kun felt a cold shiver run down his spine. The master of this territory is clearly no pushover. High-tier monsters definitely exist within this giant tree forest. Ji Yu-kun calculated his odds and decided to abandon the idea of returning to the tree hollow. After all, that screech just now came exactly from the direction of his old nest. Recalling the feathers he had found in the hollow before, it is glaringly obvious. That hollow is definitely linked to the griffin. Of course, given the griffin's massive size, it might not actually live inside the hollow itself, but better safe than sorry. Ji Yu-kun decided to ditch his original residence for good. He immediately took his captive girl and his spoils, hiding them deep within the thickets. Then, armed with a longsword, he headed off in the opposite direction. He was determined to scout out a place suitable for his own habitat, treading cautiously through the giant tree forest, enduring the scratches from weeds and jagged branches. Ji Yu-kun finally managed to find a cave. This cave was situated at the base of a steep cliff. Above it stood a precipice that towered into the clouds, ensuring no monsters could launch an ambush from above. Anything falling from that height would likely end up as a pancake. Furthermore, the entrance was obscured by numerous vines growing along the rock wall. Without a very close look, it would be extremely difficult to notice that there was even a cave inside. From a geographical standpoint, using this place as a base meant he would only need to focus on guarding against enemies coming from the forest in front of the cliff. However, it also posed a risk to his escape routes. After all, being trapped inside a cave, if an enemy like a black wolf blocked the entrance, he would be a sitting duck with no way out. For Ji Yu-chen, that was not exactly good news. Still, he had to sneak inside to check the actual layout. Moreover, at the entrance of this hidden cave, there were no monster tracks to be seen. It was most likely unclaimed territory. Maintaining his guard, Ji Yu-kun quietly slipped inside. To his surprise, he found a whole new world within. It was not just a simple, singular cavern. It contained an underground river and numerous tunnels leading to various locations. Ji Yu-chen explored them one by one. He found that some tunnels went very deep, seemingly leading to the other side of the cliff. Others were quite shallow, ending near the cliff's surface. These would serve perfectly as emergency exits, as long as he blocked them properly with stones and let the vines cover them up. No monster would ever find them. After observing for a long time, he felt this place was quite excellent. It had ventilation and an underground river. Though it was dim, it was perfectly suited for a goblin like him to inhabit. He would not even have to worry about water supply. Taking everything into account, Ji Yu-chun quickly decided to head back the way he came. He wanted to bring today's haul back to this cave, which he had now marked as his lair. But not long after Ji Yu-chen re-entered the forest, he realized he was being tracked. Ji Yu-chun could clearly feel a ferocious gaze fixated on him from the shadows. But as I scanned the surroundings, searching for any trace of a pursuer, the figure lurking in the shadows remained elusive. A prickle of unease washed over me. I had no idea whose bad side I had managed to get on. It was not until I happened to glance upward that I finally saw it, perched upon a massive branch not far away. A juvenile griffin stood tall and menacing. Its calculating eyes were locked onto me, tracking my every move. It was crystal clear I was being sized up as a snack. To think that in the blink of an eye, I would already been marked by another monster. And of all things, it had to be a griffin, the ultimate headache. I could only lament the pathetic reality of being a goblin. For a creature this weak, survival among a sea of monsters relies solely on a cunning, wicked nature, and a relentless, driving urge to propagate the species. The goal is simple: impregnate as many females as possible, just to keep our numbers from plummeting to zero. However, I noticed something. This griffin, at its current stage, was barely over a meter tall. It was a mere fledgling, likely only a few years old. Its power level should be around G class or F class. That explains why it is hesitating to dive in and hunt me, a lowly goblin. The damn thing is clearly playing it safe, waiting for an opening. The little griffin's instinct was telling it that the goblin before it was not an easy target. It knew it had to be cautious. I gradually began to see through its train of thought. This method of silently stalking without attacking was actually more troublesome to deal with. The fact that this griffin could think like this proved it possessed actual intelligence. It possessed a level of reasoning comparable to a primitive human. If I tried to use any cheap tricks, it would not be so easily fooled. Compared to those boneheaded black wolves, this thing is a nightmare. Still, I found myself wondering, exactly when did this little griffin mark me? After all, I have been walking on eggshells this entire time, barely leaving a trace of my whereabouts. Could it be? My eyes narrowed as a thought occurred to me. Suddenly, it all clicked. I remembered that hollow tree I had scavenged from earlier. It looks like that was this little birdie's nest. He was not living with his parents. He had moved out on his own. Or perhaps this entire giant tree forest is his parents' territory, allowing him to live wherever he pleases. Once I realized this, a surge of genuine tension hit me. The little griffin is not the problem. The problem is, if you hit the kid, the parents show up. If this brat holds a grudge and brings his parents along, it won't matter how many lives I have. I would be nothing more than a light snack for them. I understood only too well the hard limits of being a mere goblin. I decided to shake off this little stalker first, and then find a way to get the hell out of the giant tree forest. This neighborhood is getting way too dangerous. No time like the present. I performed a quick feint, ducking behind a massive tree, and began crawling rapidly through the thick underbrush. But to my dismay, the gaze of that little griffin behind me remained glued to my back. That is when it hit me. He was likely tracking me by scent, since I had stayed in his nest. It was only natural that he would have my scent memorized. Fine, let us play it that way. I grabbed handfuls of mud and smeared them all over my body, before attempting to slip away again, using the same path. This time, the little griffin seemed to lose its target all of a sudden. Confused, it could not help but flap its wings, and descend to the spot where I had vanished. Yet, he was nowhere to be found. It immediately let out an angry, piercing shriek, lashing out at its surroundings in a fit of rage, desperate to flush Ji Yu-kun, that annoying pest, out into the open. Meanwhile, Ji Yu-chen, having long since fled the scene, was hurrying away with the unconscious mage girl, along with the weapons and gear he had looted. He took a detour to head back to his lair. Only after carefully concealing the cave entrance with vines did he finally feel the weight lift off his shoulders. He could finally breathe easy. I am still way too weak right now. I have to walk on eggshells around every monster I see. He let out a helpless, frustrated sigh. But it is what it is. No use crying over spilt milk, burying the burning desire to grow stronger deep within. Ji Yu-chun moved to the center of the cave. He began to kindle a campfire and started roasting chunks of black wolf meat. He could have chosen to eat it raw, but it tastes much better cooked. Plus, the heat kills off any parasites. And so, in the dim light of the flickering flames, Ji Yu-chen spent his first night. At the same time, Lily, the captured mage girl, finally regained consciousness. The system also notified Ji Yu-chen that after his previous death, the third simulation was about to begin. Congratulations, you have been isekai to another world. Please select your birth mother. A. Despairing village girl. B. Mysterious and seductive enchantress. D. Red forest elf. E. Highly fertile ratkin. You damn filthy goblin. You are a dead man walking. The lady's teammates will definitely come and rescue me. While Ji Yu-chen was reviewing the new birth options, Lily, the captured mage girl, slowly woke from her stupor. The moment she laid eyes on Ji Yu-chen, she began to seethe with absolute hatred. She completely forgot how pathetic and panicked she was when Ji Yu-chen first ambushed her. The noise from the blonde mage known as Lily forced Ji Yu-chen to temporarily shift his attention back to reality. His cold, predatory eyes locked onto her. The sudden intensity nearly scared the life out of Lily, but for the sake of her pride, she continued to mutter defiantly, "My brother is a Black Jade rank adventurer. Since you dared to capture me, he will definitely track you down and get his revenge." Hearing the mention of Black Jade rank from Lily, Ji Yu-chen paused for a moment. Porcelain, obsidian, white stone, black jade, copper, silver, gold, and platinum among these 8 ranks. Black Jade is not exactly low tier. In fact, they are considered the backbone of the adventurer community. Moreover, the gap between that and high tier combat power is actually quite narrow. He had not expected the rookie party he stumbled upon to have such a powerful connection. Ji Yu-chun found himself in a bit of a pickle. After all, a Black Jade rank equivalent for a monster would be Earth class, while he was currently just an F class. Looks like he had accidentally stepped on a very dangerous hornet's nest. Seeing Ji Yu-ken fall silent, the blonde girl thought her threats were actually working. She could not help but feel a smug sense of satisfaction. HMPH, my brother, is the most famous adventurer in town. Everyone looks up to him. He is one of the guild's elite fighters. Now that you have offended his sister, that would be me, Lily. You are totally cooked. Even though he was a human-speaking goblin, Lily remained arrogant and unruly. At this moment, she had completely forgotten she was his prisoner, locked away and helpless. Instead, she glared at Ji Yu-kan with gritted teeth, obsessed with getting payback for his sneak attack. Shut up. Her non-stop chirping was giving him a headache. Ji Yu-chan, already annoyed by the rescue threat, was now reaching his breaking point. I did not expect to stir up such a massive hornet's nest. Hie-iki. Are you scared now? The goblin who can speak human tongue, Lily. Seeing Ji Yu-chen's growing impatience, she immediately let out a ridiculous, mocking laugh. Then she said smugly, "If you kneel on the ground right now, and beg this lady for mercy, and escort me back to the town, then I might just be in a good enough mood to spare your life. I told you to shut up." He slapped the blonde girl Lily right across her small face, leaving a stinging red mark behind. Ji Yu-chen's sudden slap left her completely dazed. Immediately, tears welled up in her eyes. She burst into a loud, wailing cry. Wah, you are just an ugly monster. How dare you hit this lady? I will never forgive you for this. You disgusting green monster. Sobbing uncontrollably, he slapped her once again. The sharp pain made Lily instantly lose her voice from the shock. Her face felt numb and tingly. She had not expected that Ji Yu-chun would not fall for her usual tantrums at all. Now, terrified of receiving another slap, she choked back her tears, gritting her teeth and glaring at him. Ji Yu-kun remained utterly unimpressed, having provoked such a big trouble now. What should I do? Ji Yu-kun muttered to himself. Not only was he being targeted by the young hatchling of the giant tree forest's overlord, whom he had rescued, but he also had a conflict with a famous human adventurer. For a moment, he actually felt a hint of panic, but then on second thought, with his current self, as long as he stays well hidden in this cave, and does not leave a trail, even if those terrifying monsters and humans are looking for him, what does it matter to him? As long as he makes good use of the witch during this time, to increase his power, that would be enough. Ji Yu-chun believed that all his troubles and shortcomings stemmed from being weak. If he becomes powerful enough, these troubles would naturally cease to be troubles. Except, of course, for that goblin slayer. Ji Yu-kun felt a certain dread toward this natural enemy of goblins. So, he looked at the aggrieved, silently weeping and defiant blonde girl. Lily, do you know of the goblin slayer? He received no response. She only gave Ji Yu-chen an angry glare. Ji Yu-chun felt somewhat helpless. He suspected this blonde girl might have some screws loose. She still had not realized the gravity of her situation. He then simply extended his hand, fingers spread. Seeing this, Lily immediately panicked, fearful of being hit again. She hurriedly and humiliatingly replied, "The goblin slayer is a bronze rank adventurer from another town. He specializes in hunting goblins. That is why he is titled the natural enemy of goblins. He even received a commendation from the kingdom, defiant yet terrified of the slap." Lily spoke with a stifled voice, tears streaming down her face continuously. Her gaze was still filled with resentment. Upon receiving the news, Ji Yu-chen's heart skipped a beat. He did not expect the goblin slayer to exist in reality as well. Now things have become quite troublesome. Ji Yu-kan was not afraid of other human adventurers, but he feared the goblin slayer, because that man is truly obsessed with killing every last goblin in the world without a shred of hesitation. How could Ji Yu-chun, a goblin himself, not be afraid? Fine, I have told you everything. When are you going to let me go? But Lily still had not given up hope. She demanded Ji Yu-chun to let her leave immediately. In response, Ji Yu-kan simply shot her a look as if she were an absolute idiot. You know my secret now. You can never leave this place, unless you leave in a casket. Hearing Hearing this answer, Lily instantly flew into a rage. You wretched goblin. If you dare to keep me prisoner, my brother will eventually come and kill you. This place is well hidden. He won't find it. Besides, I've got plenty of enemies hunting me already. One more won't make a difference. Also, you should be well aware what happens when a female falls into the hands of goblins. What the outcome will be. Having said that, Ji-Yu-kan wanted to teach this arrogant, spoiled blonde girl a lesson. He immediately cast a greedy and lecherous gaze toward her. Hearing Ji-Yu-chen's reminder, Lily instantly recalled the stories. The female adventurers who were abducted by goblins, and the state they were in when rescued. Most of them ended up in a state of hollow despair, having been violated by goblins thousands of times, giving birth to countless goblin infants. At the thought of this, Lily finally realized the gravity of her situation. Her eyes instantly filled with sheer terror as she looked at Ji-Yu-chen. Because she had heard Ji-Yu-chen speak human tongue, she had not fully processed the fact that the creature before her was a notoriously cruel goblin. Now that it clicked, her face instantly turned pale as a ghost. Her whole body trembled, unable to resist the urge to flee from Ji-Yu-chen's side. As for Ji-Yu-chen, looking at the blonde girl, who finally knew the meaning of fear, he gave a cold, mocking smirk. However, he was in no hurry to defile her. For the moment, he had no interest in such things, and so, he directly threw the shivering blonde girl, Lily, into a small room to lock her up. Promptly, he moved to the center of the cave. He began the process of entering the simulation. He needed to continue increasing his strength. The crises he currently faced were far too many. Congratulations, you have transmigrated to another world. Please select your birth mother. A. Despairing village girl. B. Mysterious enchantress. C. Female warrior adventurer. D. Forest elf of Crimson Woods. E. Multi-pregnant ratman. He decided to re-enter the simulation. To boost his power, Ji-Yu-chen looked at the 5 refreshed birth mother options. This time, he wanted to try something different. After all, up until now, he did not know how, within the simulation, the status of the birth mother would affect the crucial final rating. Therefore, Ji-Yu-chen chose the forest elf. Just from the description, it was clear. This forest elf most likely viewed the child she gave birth to as her only hope for survival. Thus, towards her own offspring, she would have an exceptionally strong possessiveness. This was exactly what Ji-Yu-chen intended. With such a birth mother, the probability of surviving would be much higher. Please select your birth location. A. Large goblin den. B. Goblin den construction. C. Goblin King's Lair. D. Goblin Raider Outpost. Goblin Den Construction. Ji-Yu-kan looked at this strange option. This was the first time it had appeared. He inquired the system for the reason. This goblin den has not yet established a true hierarchy. Therefore, it has not yet reached the scale of a standard goblin den. Listening to the system's introduction, Ji-Yu-kan started to feel a spark of interest. After all, a nest like this seemed much safer. Perhaps, it could even reduce the risk of being targeted by the goblin slayer. It was also perfectly suited for his development. This time, he might just manage to survive a few extra days. So, Ji-Yu-kan took a piece of roasted wolf meat and went to force-feed the pale-faced girl, Lady Lily, who had realized her chastity was in grave danger. After ensuring she would not starve to death, he entered the simulation. Host Ji-Yu-chen. Species, common goblin. Status, normal. Stage, infancy. Condition, emaciated. Physicality, 24 kilograms, 41 centimeters. Inherited skills, vitality drain. Tool crafting, sword mastery, feigned death. Evolution points, 341,400. Birth mother acquired through hunting. Lisa, the forest elf. A familiar scent. Ji-Yu-kan opened his eyes and surveyed his surroundings. He was currently in a damp, foul-smelling cave. The space was not very large, containing only a handful of 5 or 6 adult goblins, and about a dozen goblin infants. Clearly, this was an underdeveloped goblin nest. You have reincarnated as a common goblin in the simulation. Please select a skill at random from the racial traits of your birth mother. A virtual screen suddenly popped up. Ji-Yu-kan proceeded with the draw immediately. After all, he was already well acquainted with this process. You have drawn a forest elf racial skill. Plant growth. Plant growth, wood element magic. Through a brief incantation, you can summon seeds from the soil, causing them to grow violently under your control. Current life missions have been issued. Mission 1, Goblin Chieftain. The host must build this nest until it is fully established. Requirement, over 50 goblin infants. Fertile breeding stock, 10 females. Mission 2, Mother-son bond. The host must protect his birth mother. Leave the goblin nest and find a suitable place for her to live. During this period, the birth mother must not suffer any psychological trauma. Reward, complete either mission. To return to reality, you will inherit the skills used in the simulation, along with a level inheritance based on performance. Additionally, receive 1,000 evolution points and an evolution template. Looking at the altered system missions, Ji-Yu-kan was stunned. He did not expect the missions this time to be so different from the previous kill to evolve style. Instead, there were now 2 options. One was to build the goblin nest. The other was to protect his birth mother and find her a safe haven. The system's intentions were unclear. However, Ji-Yu-kan did not have time to choose between them yet. He discovered that his birth mother was currently about to be violated by an adult goblin. Giggle, giggle. A dark green, stunted adult goblin was currently leering as it approached. The forest elf, whose legs were tightly bound to a wooden stake. Her eyes were hollow and full of despair, her face stagnant with grief. She seemed to have already surrendered to her fate. However, when she looked at the goblin child she had just birthed, a glimmer of light flickered in those lifeless eyes. Her lips then curled into a forced gentle smile. My baby. Seeing this, Ji-Yu-kan remained silent. It seemed this was indeed his birth mother, but now that he had a mission, he could not let other goblins just do as they pleased. With a single thought, Ji-Yu-kan immediately unleashed his wood magic ahead of schedule. Plant growth. He snatched up a bow and arrow that a goblin had dropped on the ground, aiming at the adult goblin, who wore a sinister sneer. He loosed a shot. The arrow pierced right through the creature's skull. Its pupils dilated instantly, and its body went limp, collapsing onto the floor. The malicious grin vanished from its face, replaced by the final desperate struggle of death. What do you think you are doing, you piece of trash? Realizing their comrade had been killed in an instant, the remaining adult goblins flew into a rage. With predatory wolf-like glares, they glowered furiously at Ji-Yu-chen. They could not believe this goblin child dared to slaughter his own kind. Infuriated, they brandished daggers and short swords, intent on killing Ji-Yu-chen. However, against the current Ji-Yu-chen, who possessed numerous skills, these adult goblins were hardly a threat. The moment they charged forward, their feet were were suddenly caught in the dirt. Vines erupting from the soil bound them tightly. Their stunted bodies were rendered completely immobile. This scene sent a shock through the adult goblins' minds. It was beyond belief. A high-tier goblin had actually appeared in their nest. A goblin shaman. A goblin shaman is the equivalent of a mage among humans, born with the ability to wield terrifying magic. Within a nest, they are the absolute superiors to ordinary goblins. And so, at this very moment, the adult goblins, seeing that Jiyu-kun could indeed use wood magic, exchanged stunned looks. They began whispering frantically among themselves. Finally, having seemingly reached a consensus, their initial ferocity vanished in an heartbeat. Instead, they knelt one by one, bowing their heads to the ground, paying their respects to this newly risen leader. Jiyu-kun found it a bit strange, but after a moment's thought, he understood why. He chose to ignore them for now. Then he walked over to the shell-shocked forest elf before him. This was the mother who bore him in this simulation. He casually took off his own garment and threw it to her, to cover her exposed skin. She never imagined her baby, Jiyu-chen, would suddenly become so powerful. Lisa was at a complete loss, but as a mother, she could not help but drag her exhausted, fragile body forward. Kneeling on the ground, she pulled Jiyu-kun into a tight embrace. My baby. Nana muttered incessantly. Her soul had long been ravaged by those vile stunted goblins, who used her to satisfy their primal lust until she was nearly broken. Now, Lisa held tightly to the child who had protected her. She kept repeating the same phrase like a broken record. Seeing this, Jiyu-kun understood clearly what kind of inhumane treatment this forest elf had been forced to endure. It seemed he would have to heal her spirit from now on. Jiyu-chun then cast a fierce, cold gaze at every adult goblin present. They remained prostrated on the ground, clearly acknowledging Jiyu-chun's absolute strength. They even spoke up to plead with him. "Oh great king, you possess the aura of a shaman. Please, you must lead us. Lead the scattered tribe of goblins, and build us an impregnable nest." Is that so? Jiyu-chen looked at those faces, the faces of adult goblins filled with lust, greed, and malice. He did not need to guess what they were really thinking. Acquire more females of various races. Give birth to more goblin hatchlings. It is better than just having your strength acknowledged, is not it? Immediately, a wicked, toothy grin spread across his face. I must kill off all you old relics, and rebuild a new one, a goblin den, completely under my control. In this narrow, dim, and damp cave, the air was now thick with the stench of blood. Jiyu-chun looked at the bodies lying in pools of blood. The numerous adult goblins. Their pupils had constricted in their final moments. Incredible. Unbelievable. To think they were actually killed by a goblin child. But that was the cold, hard reality. Jiyu-chun tossed the bow and arrow onto the ground. At that moment, the mentally unstable forest elf mother, Lisa, anxiously crawled toward Jiyu-chun's feet. She hurriedly and nervously checked him for injuries. After confirming he was not hurt, her dirty little face finally showed a sign of relief. The look of a mother who felt a heavy burden lift upon seeing her child safe. She immediately hugged Jiyu-kun tightly, refusing to let go, muttering to herself incessantly in a delirious state. Jiyu-chun had already grown accustomed to this. This forest elf mother, having endured so much lust from the goblins, their releases, and their torture. Her mental breakdown had, ironically, saved her. After all, any normal person, subjected to such malice, would have lost the will to live long ago. They would have become a shell of a person with a destroyed psyche. Now that her mind was fractured, with a few days of care, there was actually a chance she might return to normal. However, Jiyu-chun looked directly at those who were hiding in the corners, the young goblin hatchlings who dared not make a sound. His gaze was fierce. He immediately exuded the intimidating aura of a leader. From now on, I am your king, your chief. You must sacrifice your lives for me unconditionally. Absolute obedience. Now, the first task is to clean this place up properly, he announced with an air of superiority. Those who did not want to die. The goblins, deeply subdued by Jiyu-chun's power, hurriedly stood up. They began to move. None dared to disobey the king's decree. At this point, Jiyu-chun had a new idea. He wanted to carry out two system missions simultaneously. Not only did he need to build his own goblin den, but he also had to protect the birth mother, to eventually send her back to the forest elf territory. Of course, for that latter mission, he first had to restore the birth mother's sanity. This current delusional behavior was far from a healthy state of mind. Furthermore, Jiyu-chun discovered that the flow of time within the simulation was different from the outside world. One day in reality equaled 1 month in the simulation. Therefore, Jiyu-chun now had ample time to conduct simulations, barring any accidents. He decided to grind levels thoroughly within the simulation, so that his real-world self could directly inherit the levels and experience, achieving the goal of XP farming. In reality, he was facing too many crises. Rescuing adventurers without immense strength. He would not even dare to step out of the cave later. It was best to increase his strength as quickly as possible. Thus, Jiyu-chun began a series of drastic reforms. 3 days later, at this very moment, the foul-smelling damp cave had been successfully cleaned. Excrement, secretions, and filthy things like food scraps were all cleared away. Jiyu-chun arranged a specialized cave for processing those females who had previously been captured by the goblins. Jiyu-chun did a quick head count. 3 humans, 1 forest elf. 4 in total. There were 2 other human women before, but because they were tortured and ravaged so severely, they succumbed to disease and died. As for those who remained, Jiyu-chun handled all their arrangements. He ensured their bodies were cleaned, washing them all with clean river water, and then treating their wounds with herbal medicine. Under such management, these female captives actually saw a significant recovery in their spirits. Right now, Jiyu-chun stood in the cave specifically used to hold the prisoners. Looking at them, their eyes were filled with panic and unease. They no longer held that hollow gaze of absolute despair. The females in the cave began to plead. Please, I beg you, let us go. Mommy, I want to go home. Whispers began to break out among them, and some even started to sob. Jiyu-kun ignored this entirely. Instead, he walked straight toward the curled-up figure, sleeping on a pile of withered leaves, the forest elf. That is, Lisa, his own biological birth mother. Over the past few days, Jiyu-kun found that her mental state remained as erratic and frayed as ever. She would either wake up and cling to him, calling him baby and wanting to nurse, or she would huddle in a corner, her eyes completely vacant. Jiyu-chun felt quite helpless about this. All he could do was let her stay close to these other female captives, hoping she might return to normal. Suddenly, Lisa woke up. Her eyes were full of uncontained terror. She hurriedly and nervously scanned her surroundings. Finally, the moment she spotted Ji Ken, she rushed over to him instantly. With a face full of anxiety, she felt all over him, and after confirming there were no injuries, she neurotically pulled Ji Ken into her embrace. Then she repeated those same actions. My baby, my sweet baby. Your tummy is hungry, is not it? Mommy will feed you, okay? When you grow up, you must take mommy away from this place, okay? Saying this, Lisa directly lifted her tattered shirt. Attempting to nurse him, Ji Chun was utterly helpless. Even if he tried to pull away, Lisa would end up bursting into tears. So he obediently complied. The surrounding women, seeing this, all showed expressions of unbearable discomfort. They found this phenomenon hard to stomach. Why would one of their own kind actually feel maternal love for a goblin? Clearly, in the beginning, they had all been subjected to such evil torture by the goblins, humiliated and broken. However, they knew that the current Ji Chen was the king of this goblin nest. As the leader, he had the right to dominate all resources. Their lives as captives were held in his hands, and all the other goblins followed his orders. But compared to the dark days of the past, they surprisingly began to feel a sense of gratitude. The comfort they felt under Ji Chen's arrangements made their lives visibly more humane. At the very least, they did not have to spend 24 hours a day suffering the humiliation and torture of the goblins. For them, this life of staying in a dry cave all day was actually a reward. They even discovered that Ji Chen, this dark green short goblin, could actually speak the human tongue and possessed wisdom that rivaled any normal human. This ignited a flicker of hope within them, a desperate longing that one day they might finally escape this despair-ridden goblin den. After finishing his milk, Ji Chen finished coaxing his elf mother, Lisa, back to sleep. He wiped his mouth and approached the human captives, who averted their eyes in fear. The three of you, follow me now. With those words, Ji Chen yanked the rope, leading the bewildered group, whose faces were masks of confusion and dread. They arrived at the main chamber of the goblin den. The moment they entered, the women heard that familiar, terrifying cackle. As far as the eye could see, the place was crawling with hideous goblins. Even though these goblins had not yet reached adulthood, they had already inherited the innate evil of their genes. Their vile, greedy gazes roamed incessantly over the bodies of the human women who had partially regained their health. Their primal, predatory instincts were practically overflowing. Seeing this, the women turned pale with fright, their entire bodies trembling. In an instant, memories of their tragic fate came rushing back. Some, unable to stomach the sheer revulsion, collapsed to their knees and began to retch. To these wretched goblins, however, such displays were merely an enticing appetizer before the main feast. They began to jeer and sneer in unison until the very next second, when a thick, sturdy vine erupted from the ground. It coiled around the most arrogant goblin, crushing him into a bloody pulp instantly. The faces of the jeering goblins twisted in horror. They fell to their knees one by one, kowtowing repeatedly. None dared to defy their king, Ji Chun. Ji Chun remained expressionless at the sight. He looked into the eyes of the female captives who were silently pleading for mercy. Without a hint of pity, he spoke coldly. From now on, you are responsible for the breeding of this nest. Don't worry, I will keep these idiots in line. The reproductive rate of goblins is staggering. An impregnated female will typically give birth to a goblin infant in just half a month. Furthermore, it takes less than 2 months for a goblin to grow from an infant to an adult. The sheer speed of their growth is terrifying. This is why, despite being among the weakest of all monster races, their incredible breeding speed and their biological compatibility with almost any other species allows them to maintain a foothold in this world. They are also the producers of the monster world, serving as the primary food source for many higher monsters. Inside the newly expanded cavern, Ji Chun sat upon his throne, calculating. He was assessing the changes in the nest. After 1 month of simulation, the current population was about 10. There were originally 4 or 5 adults, but they had become meals for other monsters. There were 7 or 8 juveniles. According to the system's mission requirements, I need at least 20 adult goblins and 10 fertile females. Current numbers are far from enough. I must increase the number of fertile females immediately. After all, there are only 3 humans right now, and the number of female goblin offspring is limited. The goblin den has yet to reach a significant scale. However, Ji Chun was deliberate in his breeding strategy, prioritizing the health of the mothers to ensure the speed of the race's proliferation. The weaker they are, the higher the chance of complications during childbirth for both mother and child. Therefore, it is crucial to ensure their basic physical well-being. As for why he did not go out and capture other females, Ji Chun had his reservations. For the past month, he had secretly instructed the goblins to proceed with caution. This was to confirm any traces of the goblin slayer. After discovering no sign of his presence in this forest, Ji Chun finally breathed a sigh of relief. After all, if he were to attract the attention of the goblin slayer, forget about developing the lair. His own life might be forfeit. In the current world, that man is also an F-class adventurer. He is considered a high-tier combatant among humans. His power is not to be underestimated. O king, we have successfully captured 3 human females. Just then, a goblin subject came forward to report. His face was frozen in a grin, as if he had made a decent haul. Ji Chun looked at the goblin kneeling to report, and gave a cold nod. They were a 5-person adventurer party. He had been observing them for a week. 2 males, 3 females. Their strength ranged from porcelain to obsidian rank, and their equipment was rather rudimentary. Their classes were mostly warriors, archers, and rogues. There were no troublesome mages or monks. So, this adventurer party, Ji Chun judged them to be relatively weak. With the full force of the adult goblin warriors at his disposal, they should be able to take them down. Moreover, they had been frequenting this forest recently, causing quite a stir. They brazenly hunted horned rabbits, the main food source for goblins and other monsters. Once they even carelessly started a fire in the forest and fled. In the end, he had to send his own goblins to extinguish it. These enemies had no bottom line. Of course, Ji Chun would not just let them go. He had observed them for a long time. Now, while they were off guard, he dispatched his forces to take them down. It was time to reap the rewards. Soon, the other goblins excitedly returned with the captured females bound in ropes. Ji Chun cast his gaze over them. 3 human females. They should produce some decent goblin offspring. Sob. No, I do not want to become a broodmother for goblins. Sob. Suddenly, one of the female adventurers could not hold back and began to weep. It was obvious. Being surrounded by this horde of leering goblins had terrified her. She knew all too well what fate awaited her. This outburst also caused her other female companions to become overwhelmed with fear and anxiety. They tried to struggle, but were held fast by the ropes. Unable to move, they could only resign themselves to their fate, shedding tears of bitter resentment. GG good sirs, good sirs. We got new women. GG good. I was already sick of those other three. New captives. Hee, they smell so good. Our lair can finally produce a few more goblin whelps. Have you all lost your minds? How dare you be so insolent in the presence of the king? Shut your mouths now. O king, please forgive us. This wretched goblin who disobeyed your command. He deserves to die in an instant. The goblins began to clamor amongst themselves. However, facing the first goblin who dared to be so insolent, the other goblins' faces turned pale one after another, instantly becoming consumed by panic and unease. The insolent goblin's pupils also contracted immediately, a chill running down its spine, its heart hammered against its ribs, bitterly regretting that it had actually forgotten the king's decree. Terrified beyond measure, it hurried to its knees, begging for mercy. Seeing this, Jiukan merely gave a cold, indifferent wave of his hand. Vines erupted from the earth in an instant, strangling the pleading goblin to death in a heartbeat. Wood element magic plants. Over the past month, Jiu Chen had practiced relentlessly whenever he had a spare moment. Now his casting speed was compressed to about 1.5 seconds, allowing him to summon various seedlings, sprouts, and blossoms. But the most practical of all were still the vines. The number of monsters Jiu Chen had slaughtered using these vines was already well into the double digits, nearly 30. His evolution points had also reached approximately 200. Of course, evolution points were not that easy to come by. Since Jiu Chen had already evolved to the combat power of an adult goblin, he could at most only kill some low-tier monsters. As for those more powerful, Jiu Chen, to be safe, decided not to provoke them for now. Back to the matter at hand. The reason these goblins feared him so much was that he had issued a mandatory command. Any disobedience would result in immediate execution. Thus, under the constant threat of death, they had, in their hearts, built an image of him as a decisive, cold, and ruthless monarch. They could no longer indulge in random brutality. The treatment of female captives was also one of the decrees. Continue going out to hunt rabbits and search for other monsters we can breed with. Without another word, Jiu dismissed the goblins who had finished their hunt to return to the wilderness. He then stood up and walked away, approaching the three captured female adventurers. From now on, your mission here is to propagate for me, the king, and ensure the birth of goblin infants. Jiu-chan, suddenly speaking in human tongue to these adventurers, gave them a massive shock. Unable to believe a goblin could actually speak human language, they immediately began to beg for mercy. Respected king, we only wandered into your territory by accident. Please have mercy and spare us. We promise that we will never set foot here ever again. Mommy, I want to go home. I do not want to be here anymore. I want to go home. The three female adventurers reacted differently. One already had eyes that were hollow and filled with despair. Jiu-kun did not show much emotion regarding this. Instead, he led them directly to the cave where the captives were being held. As they entered, Jiu-chin saw his own birth mother, the forest elf, Lisa. She lunged straight into his arms, her face beaming with excitement. My baby, I am pregnant with your baby. Inside the prison cave, facing his birth mother, Lisa, who had regained her original appearance, a blonde-haired, pointed-eared forest elf, Jiu-kun felt utterly helpless. Her illness had flared up again. That is right. Although Lisa's mental state had significantly improved, she would still frequently become confused, uttering nonsensical words that left one baffled. There, be good. Lisa, after your mind recovers, I will take you away from here. He gently pulled Lisa into his arms. Jiu-chan comforted this mother figure. She in turn leaned against him blissfully. She muttered under her breath, my baby. My sweet baby, you will definitely get me out of here. My baby. Meanwhile, the other three human females in the cave, seeing Jiu-chan approach at this moment, could not help but plead with him desperately. For the past month, although their conditions had improved considerably, they were still forced to be perpetually pregnant, birthing goblin offspring. The constant successive childbirths were also irreversibly damaging their health. Looking at them now, you could tell just from their faces, they all looked to be in their 30s, with the weathered appearance of village women. Therefore, when they saw Jiu-chan, this goblin leader, who possessed an intelligence rivaling that of humans, they began to beg the moment they saw him, hoping they could escape this living hell. However, Jiu-chan completely ignored them. Alright, Lisa, you just stay over there. I will play with you when I am done. He had the forest elf, Lisa, stay to one side, so she would not disturb him. Immediately after, Jiu-chan turned his gaze to the three new female adventurer captives. Next, it was time to prepare for the birth of the next goblin generation. This time, he decided to handle it personally. After all, to him, these captives were merely tools to complete a mission. Just numbers without names. Best to get this over with quickly. Not long after, the captives' miserable screams echoed from the cave. After settling these new captives, Jiu-kan returned to his stone throne in the main den and sat down. At the same time, he was also contemplating how long this simulation would need to last. To be honest, because he had been focused on building the goblin lair, he had not acquired many evolution points. So far, he only had a little over 200. Even after returning to reality, it would not be enough to meet the requirements for his next evolution. However, as compensation, the system had given him 2 missions. He only needed to complete one of them to receive 1,000 evolution points and a rare evolution template. This evolution template, Jiu-kan deduced, should be for evolving into a high-tier goblin species. Hobgoblin, Goblin Shaman, Goblin Hero, Goblin King, Goblin Paladin. There are many high-tier goblin species, but the conditions to reach them are incredibly difficult to meet. Basically, they all rely on the goblin's formidable reproductive ability to force an evolution into a high-tier species through sheer numbers. Under normal circumstances, it is very rare for a high-tier species to appear. Therefore, once a high-tier species appears in a goblin lair, it often signifies that this lair is beginning to establish a leader and is starting to grow in power. Jiu-chan was very curious about what kind of template he would get when the time came. Thus, completing this mission was an absolute must. One is for evolution, harvest, and skills. I must cast the spell myself. After a second and a half of plant growth, suddenly dozens of plants burst from the ground. Jiu-kan seized the opportunity to use Vitality Siphon, absorbing their life energy into his body to improve his constitution. Jiu-chan had obtained 2 skills from the forest elf race, Vitality Siphon and plant growth. So, for a moment, the possibility of using them simultaneously emerged. By a stroke of luck, I discovered this effect. The plants summoned by plant growth are brimming with life force. Ji-Yu-chan had tested it. If I bleed out too much, I just need to use Life Siphon on these plants, and I can achieve instant recovery. Life Siphon forcibly turns itself into a potent healing spell. And now, Ji-Yu-chan has another experiment in mind. An idea occurred to him. He wondered if it was possible for Life Siphon to be upgraded. Life Siphon can only drain the life energy of others to heal and improve myself, but it is incapable of healing others. This left Ji-Yu-chan quite dissatisfied. After all, in every simulation, the mother he is born from always has an extremely weak life force, barely clinging to life. If I had a healing ability, I could provide immediate medical treatment. It could also be used for self-preservation. Such a convenient skill would be an incredibly powerful form of magic. So now, whenever Ji-Yu-chan has a spare moment, he trains. He wants to see if he can trigger an upgrade for Life Siphon. However, using magic requires energy, what is commonly known as a mana pool. Ji-Yu-chan currently estimates that I can probably only use it about 20 times a day. So I have to take it slow. Constant dripping wears away the stone. And just as Ji-Yu-chan was performing his routine training, at that moment, several adult goblin scouts rushed back from outside. They knelt directly before Ji-Yu-chan to report the urgent situation. War Chief. The Black Wolf tribe has indeed appeared near our lair. They have begun their invasion. Suddenly, the scouts Ji-Yu-chan had positioned on the perimeter are now reporting critical intelligence. Hearing this, Ji-Yu-chan also stopped his training. His eyes turned fierce. So the Black Wolves really have set their sights on us. Indeed. During this past month, in this region of the forest, other monster races also exist. Among them, the Black Wolves, the same ones from reality before. The Black Wolf tribe that wanted to devour Ji-Yu-chan had targeted them. The Goblin tribe, now led by Ji-Yu-chan, they have repeatedly conducted stealthy reconnaissance, attempting to invade. Therefore, Ji-Yu-chan had long been on high alert. He had dispatched scouts to investigate the situation. It seems the prior precautions were effective. Now, immediately recall the goblins hunting outside. To the lair. We must begin to repel the Black Wolf tribe's invasion. After Ji-Yu-chan calmly gave the order, the Goblin scout hurriedly left to relay the information. The Goblin scout, a mid-tier goblin variant, is stronger than a common goblin. They possess nimble agility and keen observational skills. However, their attack power is generally lacking. So, within a goblin lair, they serve as important pawns. Ji-Yu-chan had also discovered by chance this mid-tier variant, the Goblin Scout, and so he took them under his command. Very quickly, the Goblin Scout, with its extreme speed, began to summon back one by one the adult goblins who were outside. Returning to the main hall now, it was filled with goblins, their faces etched with anxiety and tension. Although they are usually cunning and greedy, when faced with the Black Wolf monster race, they still felt a sense of unease. After all, the individual strength of a Black Wolf is around F-class. Within their pack, there might even be a terrifying E-class existence. Goblins usually take the long way around to avoid them. I did not expect to be the one getting hunted this time. Facing the anxious goblins, Ji-Yu-chan did not bother with comforting words. Instead, he already had a card up his sleeve. After all, he had already scouted the strength of these Black Wolves. He even had a rather bizarre idea popping into his head. He planned to take the female Black Wolves and mate them with the goblins. He wanted to see what the offspring would look like. Would they be goblins or Black Wolves? Since ancient times, Ji-Yu-chan had never heard of such a thing. Could goblins and non-humanoid monsters actually breed some kind of strange hybrid? Usually, the goblins' targets have always been humanoid races. Humans, elves, beastmen, succubi. But a Black Wolf is a pure beast, it is a different breed entirely. So Ji-Yu-chan was naturally curious. If a female wolf could also give birth to goblin offspring, then his current mission would become a whole lot easier. Right now, the forest elf mother, Lisa, was still mentally unstable. Lost in her own confusion, it was difficult to complete the task through her. He had to pivot his strategy to the front lines. If this experiment succeeded, then he would not have to constantly hunt for human adventurers. After all, that is a risky business. Missing adventurers will eventually trigger an investigation from the guild. If they discovered this goblin nest, it might even attract the Goblin Slayer. Just the thought of the Goblin Slayer made Ji-Yu-chan feel a chill down his spine. That man's pressure is the real deal. Last time I barely escaped by the skin of my teeth. The Goblin Slayer must be fuming with rage. If he recognizes me, I am toast. Thinking this way, Ji-Yu-chan quickly made up his mind. Or rather, he finalized his ruthless plan. My goblin subjects, your king has only one command. Follow the instructions of the Goblin Scouts. Everyone, get into your positions. He had already prepared defenses against the Black Wolves. Ji-Yu-chan had naturally devised a countermeasure. He immediately had the goblin attendants organize the workforce. The tunnel openings leading outside were all blocked with massive boulders. Only one was left open. The main entrance, just large enough for a Black Wolf to enter. Now, it is just like shooting fish in a barrel. Has the king found a way? Yes, we believe. The king will surely help us defeat those wretched Black Wolves. How dare those wolves strike first? Invading our goblin nest is unforgivable. Under the king's leadership, victory is ours. I do not want to die. Don't want to die. Don't want to die. I want to keep breeding more goblin kin. Faced with Ji-Yu-chan's royal decree, the goblins grew increasingly riled up. One by one, they raised their weapons high. Seeing this, Ji-Yu-chan remained cold and unfazed. He let the goblin scouts carry out his orders precisely. No, all they had to do was wait for the Black Wolves to charge in. Not long after, following a sharp, piercing howl, outside the goblin nest, a pack of at least 20 Black Wolves had gathered. That was more than half of their tribe's total fighting force. Except for the pups, almost all the male wolves have joined the hunt. The remaining she-wolves and pups are left to guard the den. After all, they have had their eyes on this goblin lair for a very long time. The number of adult goblins is merely a dozen or so. They are certainly no match for the might of our Black Wolf pack. Therefore, for winter provisions and a place to live, we must take this place. A ferocious glint flashed in the eyes of the leading Black Wolf alpha. He showed his resolve with a savage look. At the same time, the Black Wolves following closely behind howled in response. protagonists. It was clear they were ready at a moment's notice for this one-sided battle. They, the Black Wolf Pack, now face a winter survival crisis. They will claim this goblin lair as their own and utterly devour these weak, hideous goblins. HMPH. Rest easy, my pack. This fledgling goblin lair. After our long observation, we have already assessed their strength. Indeed, there are only about 10 adult goblins, but we have over 20 adult black wolves. Let us not even talk about the size difference. By numbers alone, their defeat is certain. The Black Wolf Alpha, using the language of wolves, arrogantly rallied his pack. His words quickly drew jeers and arrogance from the pack. They felt the same way. This time, their Black Wolf Pack had truly struck gold to actually stumble upon a goblin lair that has not even fully formed yet. They all began to howl with excitement. The Black Wolf Alpha was very pleased, listening to the pack's uproar. His eyes immediately turned fierce and cunning. He began to lead his pack, venturing into the darkness of the goblin lair's main entrance. But they had no idea that they had already fallen for Jiyu Chen's trap, this goblin leader who possessed human-like intelligence. His conspiracy, and now they foolishly walked right into it. Yet, they were completely oblivious. These simple-minded, straightforward monsters. How could they ever imagine that a mere goblin would actually use cunning schemes? After all, this was something unheard of, except for some high-intelligence goblins of the royal variety. But in the Black Wolf Alpha's observation, he did not think Jiyu Chen was any smarter than himself. He was just an ordinary, short, and frail goblin. All he had to do was bare his fangs, and he could tear the wailing, begging creature to shreds. But at this very moment, his eyes were filled with terror. How can this be? Why are we trapped in here? Now, in the dim goblin lair. The Black Wolf Alpha, at first, had led his pack in here without any obstruction. He was still basking in the excitement of an incredibly smooth entry. But why? When they reached the main chamber of the goblin lair, did they suddenly find that the many cave openings here were blocked by giant rocks? There was no way to leave. It had become a sealed cave. And above the cave, stood a dense crowd of goblins. There were adults and young ones. But without exception, they were all holding bows and arrows. At the same time, the chilling glint of their arrowheads was aimed right at him and his pack. Release. To think that monsters are truly incapable of understanding what is known as a conspiracy. They actually fell for it, so foolishly. Jiyu Chen felt a bit like a villain for this. To actually use a scheme to attack these dire wolves who fight with a pure heart for battle. However, in a war of racial annihilation, there is no room for mercy. Therefore, Jiyu Chen decisively gave the order to fire. In an instant, numerous dire wolves were struck by arrows. They all began to howl in pain. Meanwhile, Jiyu Chen, acting alone, arrived at the main cave entrance. He used the plant growth magic he had already finished chanting, instantly summoning a dense thicket of shrubs and thorny brambles. It took over the area around the cave entrance. Those dire wolves, desperately trying to flee the nest, were all pierced by Jiyu Chen's plants, covered in wounds. They found it impossible to break through. They were trapped inside the main lair, endlessly facing the sharp blades of the goblins. And so, before the despairing eyes of the dire wolf leader, his pack members fell one by one, never to rise again. Even he, in the end, did not know which goblin. Suddenly shot out his eyes. Everything went black. A sharp blade finally stole his life, ending the invasion of the dire wolf clan. It was a close call. Just like that, it was easily settled by Jiyu Chen's schemes and stratagems. Of course, the blame lies with these monsters being far too naive. They knew nothing of so-called cunning and deceit. Jiyu Chen looked at the dire wolf leader, who died unwillingly. His expression was unchanged. Then he immediately gave an order. Move out now. Bring all the female wolves of the dire wolf clan back to the lair, to serve as breeding stock. As soon as these words were spoken, the goblins cheered and leapt for joy. Excited and thrilled, they all licked their lips with their long tongues. Their eyes gleamed with a wicked, greedy ferocity for the she-wolves. They, the goblins, had never experienced such a thing before. Without the protection of the male wolves. At this very moment, the dire wolf clan in this forest, those female dire wolves, were all captured by the greedy goblins and dragged back to their lair. Jiyu Kun looked at these spoils of war, an endless supply of dire wolf meat, numerous female dire wolves, stone-headed female wolves. Their level is not high, but they can produce something. This is what Jiyu Chen values. And whether goblins and dire wolves have reproductive isolation or not, this is something Jiyu Chen urgently needs to figure out. So he approached these female wolves, whose jaws were tied shut with ropes, unable to open their mouths to bite. He sized them up one by one, and it seemed they also recognized Jiyu Chen, the leader of this terrifying group of goblins. Their eyes immediately filled with fear and unease. They were originally staying with their clan, looking after the pups, quite away from the wolves, to return triumphantly, with good news of finding a den for the winter. But they never expected that what awaited them were dangerous and vicious goblins. If they had not sacrificed themselves to let the pups escape, the dire wolf clan would have vanished from this forest forever. Of course, as a price, they were captured by these goblins, and tied up back in their lair. But what puzzled the wolves was, why in the eyes of these goblins did there seem to be a greedy and vile lust? This left the she-wolves very confused and uneasy. You may not understand why we goblins would capture you and bring you back, but now I can tell you clearly. From now on, you captives of the dire wolf clan have only one duty. This is how the goblin race gives birth. With a single command from Jiyu Chen, the many goblins erupted in a frenzy of excitement. Some could not even hold back, tearing off the ragged beast hides that covered their bodies. Their eyes were filled with a terrifying evil. Only at this moment did these captives understand why this king of goblins had taken them prisoner. At this moment, their faces were etched with terror and despair. The mission is almost complete. Within the simulation, time flies. 1 month later, Jiyu Chen, the king of goblins, leaned back on his stone throne, taking a head count of his clan. The system's mission required over 20 adult goblins, over 10 fertile females. And now, the clan already had 21 adult goblins. The number of mature juvenile goblins had reached 45, and the number of fertile females had reached 22. That is right. Half of Jiyu Chen's plan had succeeded. He wanted to use the females of the dire wolf clan to mate with the goblins of his own clan, and thus give birth to goblin infants. This bizarre and horrifying plan, after a month's progress, had reached a mature stage over the past month. Through Ji Chen's experiments, the goblin's genes proved to be truly terrifying. There was basically no such thing as reproductive isolation. 10 female wolves successfully became pregnant. During that time, 2 resulted in stillbirths. The remaining 8 gave birth to 4 goblin whelps. The other 4 were 4 small green-skinned monsters. However, they did not even have a chance to survive for half a day. They perished prematurely. So, based on probability, Ji Chen calculated that mating goblins with the dire wolf clan had a 40% success rate of producing goblin whelps. Facts have proven that Ji Chen's experiment was a success. A probability like this makes the plan highly feasible. Therefore, from then on, Ji Chen no longer allowed the goblins to hunt human adventurers. It was to avoid inviting trouble. Instead, he chose to exclusively hunt the dire wolf clan, abducting their females and bringing them back to the lair for the purpose of reproduction. Now, besides the original 6 human female captives, the goblin lair held a full 16 female wolves. This allowed Ji Chen's goblin lair to grow rapidly. The rate of growth reached an astonishing speed, and from the dire wolves giving birth to goblins, some new breeds emerged. Sharp claw goblins possessing razor-sharp claws, runner goblins capable of sprinting on all 4s. Of course, compared to mid to high-tier goblin breeds, these were not much different from common goblins. They were low-tier goblin breeds. They were just slightly stronger in certain aspects, that is all. There was no significant difference. Seeing that another batch of female wolves was about to give birth, the mission assigned by the system would soon be fully completed. It is about time to end this. Ji Chen muttered to himself. Ji Chen had already been here for more than 2 months. Although he had built this place, Ji Chen felt little attachment to it. He was about to end his reign here. Goblin, after this, you should understand my command, should not you? His gaze shifted slightly downwards. From his high and mighty position, he looked down upon the goblin shaman kneeling before him. Ji Chen said coolly, King, if this is truly your will, then I am willing to inherit your position. That is right. Ji Chen had already arranged for his successor. It was the one who was completely obedient. The goblin Hob, who had repeatedly completed his tasks, was about to have Ji Chen abdicate the throne to him. Starting tomorrow, after the dire wolves birthed the last batch of goblin pups, he would leave this place. He would take the forest elf, whose sanity had been restored, his mother, Lisa, along with the other 6 human females, and leave the lair. He would lead them back to where they belonged. As for this goblin lair, since the mission was already complete, there was nothing left for him here. After all, Ji Chen had long ago amassed the 800 evolution points needed to evolve to F class. However, he had chosen not to evolve. The reason was simple. The end of the road for a common goblin was the hobgoblin. After that, there would be no more chances for evolution, unless one could evolve into a higher tier existence. Ji Chen's goal was precisely to evolve into a species that surpassed the common goblin. He decided not to evolve now. Instead, he would wait until the mission was complete, and evolve directly in the real world. At that time, the system would grant him a template. So when the time comes, what kind of high-tier goblin he would become would have to wait until he returned to reality. As for those restless ones, suddenly, the goblin Hob seemed to be in a difficult position. At the same time, he was secretly glancing at Ji Chen. It was obvious he had a favor to ask. The intelligence of a goblin Hob and a common goblin are on completely different levels. The former is far superior. So now, having spent so much time with Ji Chen, he was gradually adopting a human-like way of thinking. He also understand the use of power. Therefore, even when faced with Ji Chen's abdication, he still felt a little uneasy. After all, within the goblin lair, there were still goblins who refused to submit to him. They have disappeared. Faced with the goblin Hob's petty schemes, Ji Chen silently rolled his eyes. He could not help but let the corner of his mouth curl up slightly. To think that this goblin Hob, from being in contact with him for so long, had actually developed human-like intelligence. Who knows if that is a good thing or a bad thing? Of course, Ji Chen did not care about this. In any case, his little game of playing king was about to end. It would not hurt to give him a helping hand. Just like that, Ji Chen completed the abdication of the throne, ending his brief tenure as the goblin chief. When the second day arrived, amidst the wails of the goblin pups, he took his forest elf mother, Lisa, and the many human females, and began their short journey. On the second day in the forest, the dire wolves once again birthed a litter of goblin pups. The goblin Hob, having ascended the throne, was met with a bloody purge, and now, Ji Chen was already leading the many burdens. That is, the human captives from the goblin lair, and his mother, the forest elf Lisa. On the path back home, we are going home. We can finally go home, dressed in rags. The human women, their skin covered only by scavenged animal hides, at this moment, finally left the sunless, foul-smelling cave, arriving in the outside world with its bright sunshine and fresh air. They suddenly could not help but break down in tears. The other women were moved by this as well, and one by one, they began to weep quietly. They lamented that they could actually, in their lifetime, leave that dark and terrifying goblin lair. My baby. At this time, the forest elf Lisa's small hand was tightly gripping Ji Chen's dark green, withered hand. She was trembling slightly. Ji Chen turned to look at her tense and timid face. This golden-haired, pointy-eared forest elf, now facing the world she had not seen in so long, also felt a surge of excitement in her heart, but she still harbored an unrealistic fear. So she tightly gripped her son Ji Chen's hand, hoping to find some sense of comfort. As early as half a month ago, having finally escaped the relentless torture of the goblins, her spirit gradually began to recover. She was no longer lost in madness, and started returning to her normal self. However, she still possessed for her son, Ji Chen, an overflowing maternal love. She did not loathe him just because he was a goblin. She would even forget the fact that Ji Chen had grown up, repeatedly trying to nurse and care for him, as if he were still her little baby. Ji Chen was speechless at this, but he could accept it. After all, forest elves are a long-lived race. Compared to her lifespan, his current age really did make him look like an infant. Yet longevity also brought them enduring suffering. Whether it be goblins or humans, the fragile and solitary forest elves would eventually be captured by these cunning and evil bastards, imprisoned for a lifetime to be used as mere playthings. And this was precisely the reason why forest elves easily suffered from mental instability. It was all due to a physical self-defense mechanism. If they did not break, reality would simply be too cruel for their race to bear. No. I will take you back to the forest elf territory. After that, we will go our separate ways. Ji Chen spoke indifferently. He had no intention of playing loving mother and son with Lisa anymore. To him, His birth was not a glorious event, but rather a source of despair. Plus, he would leave this place once the mission was complete, so there was no need to keep up the mother-son act. It is time to say goodbye. Hearing Ji Yuchen's words, Lisa fell silent. Since regaining her sanity, she had noticed how different her baby was. For instance, he was not crazed like those hideous, evil goblins. Instead, he was always calm and composed, calculating every move to always achieve his own goals. Moreover, his strength was quite terrifying. She had seen it with her own eyes. He could actually use the magic of the forest elves, like siphoning life and plant growth. His proficiency even surpassed some of the elders. This felt unbelievable to Lisa, since she only knew other wood element spells. How on earth did Ji Yuchen learn these two spells? Lisa found it absolutely miraculous, and it only made her love the sun even more. Regardless of what happened in the past, she only needed to believe in one thing now. Ji Yuchen would always be Lisa's baby. Good baby, sweet baby. She hugged Ji Yuchen directly from behind, clinging to him tightly without letting go. Lisa's maternal instincts exploded, constantly feeling Ji Yuchen's body heat, not caring in the slightest that he was actually a goblin. Baby, live with mommy in the forest elf territory. Okay, Lisa pleaded humbly. She wanted to take care of her baby for the rest of her life, and he would protect her forever. Even a lifelong cohabitation between mother and son was permitted within the forest elf race. Ji Yuchen, however, did not know what his birth mother, Lisa, was thinking. He remained silent in response to her request. The simulation was about to end. How could he possibly stay here to keep her company? Thus, Ji Yuchen chose silence, causing the light in Lisa's eyes to dim. With a bitter smile, my baby, mommy will miss you forever. As time passed, gradually leading this group of emotional burdens, Ji Yuchen finally arrived at the territory of the forest elves. Soon, in the forest of rhythms, there were scouts lying in wait. They discovered Ji Yuchen, the goblin, who arrived with a crowd of women. They immediately returned to the tribe to report the situation. Ji Yuchen also knew that the main force of the forest elves would arrive soon. By then, it would not be easy for him to leave or shake off their entanglement. After all, goblins are mortal enemies to the forest elves. So Ji Yuchen looked at Lisa, who was tightly clutching his sleeve, refusing to let go. It is time for you to go back. Remember, never wander off alone again. If you encounter any goblin, you must flee immediately. Take good care of yourself. Without further instructions, Ji Yuchen directly summoned a vine. It wrapped around Lisa, who refused to let go, forcibly removing her from his side. However, Lisa's determination exceeded Ji Yuchen's expectations. She even tore a part of the overcoat for his own use. Baby, my baby. Crying out in distress. Faced with Ji Yuchen's cold firmness, she did not want to leave. Lisa, protected by her son, could not help but start wailing, but all she received in return was Ji Yuchen's indifferent back. And so, the heartbroken Lisa watched with her own eyes as the goblin son, who had carefully protected her for 2 months and helped her escape that hell, completely vanished from her sight. She was then rescued by the rushing forest elf main force, who took her back to the tribe for treatment and care. On the other side, Ji Yuchen arrived before the human women he had tied up near a tree. He successfully regrouped with them. As for why he did not bring them along, it is simple. Ji Yuchen did not want other humans to know the location of the forest elf territory. This place was something he worked so hard for, spending half a month to find. How could he allow others to disturb it? Why can't you just let us go? We can move normally now. We can definitely find our way back alone. That is right. We do not want anything to do with goblins anymore, even though you are our savior. Can we ask you one last favor? Please just let us go. At that moment, the women who had been waiting anxiously, seeing Ji Yuchen return, could not help but voice their agitated thoughts. They wanted to leave this place immediately and return to the human world. They did not want any further association with goblins. After all, even if Ji Yuchen was a good goblin who saved them and helped them escape the nest. Don't be in such a hurry. Just in case, you need to get much further away from the old goblin nest. Further, otherwise, if you remember the location, you might seek revenge. Ji Yuchen ignored the women's pleas. He directly pulled the rope and continued leading them on the road. He also stated his reason clearly. The goblin nest he built with his own hands. How could he let these female adventurers remember anything that would allow them to provide its location for revenge later? Ji Yuchen was no fool. He did not trust these female adventurers that much. Therefore, he decided to keep leading them out of this forest and then immediately end the simulation. Return to reality. I must purify the raw embryo as soon as possible. But the more one hastens, the more danger one invites. This time, Ji Yuchen has unexpectedly encountered the greatest crisis of this simulation. Look. So there really is a goblin that can speak human tongue. We originally came here to hunt forest elves, to catch a few to sell off as slaves. Who knew we would stumble upon something this good? A rock drip goblin, a rare breed. Its value is no less than that of a dark elf. This one's going to fetch a handsome price. Exactly. Those high and mighty nobles will surely love this specimen. He. Just at that moment, just as Ji Yuchen prepared to lead the women away, 4 figures emerged from the surrounding woods. Armed to the teeth, they had silently closed in. Human males with sinister, mocking smiles. Listening to their exchange, Ji Yuchen understood the situation instantly. This gang was a group of slave traders. Slavers who hunt monster races far and wide, to sell them as merchandise to wealthy merchants. The fate of any monster they captured was easy to imagine. Ji Yuchen's heart sank slightly. He looked back at the women behind him. To his surprise, their faces were filled with resentment. The smugness in their eyes was unmistakable. He had been played. Was it during the time I was away? Ji Yuchen muttered to himself. He steeled himself for combat. At the same time, any mercy he felt for these female captives vanished into thin air. Your luck has run out. Goblin, while you were away, we, the slave traders, happened to find these women tied up here. And when we questioned them, they quite readily threw you under the bus. They even promised to help us pin you down. The result is plain to see. You are surrounded. Surrender quietly and get on the ground. We won't kill you. After all, you are precious cargo. Furthermore, they even guaranteed to reveal the location of the goblin nest to us. This is a golden opportunity to strike it rich. The slave traders sneered. Ji-Yu-chun looked back at the female captives. Some looked guilty. They lowered their heads, unable to meet his gaze. Others watched him with triumphant smugness, and some were consumed by fury, staring at Ji-Yu-chun with pure hatred. Why did you betray me? If you had just waited a bit longer, you could have left this place. Ji-Yu-chun was baffled. One replied, if not for you. If not for you, we would not have been subjected to such treatment, forced to bear hideous spawn. I want my mommy. I just want to see my mother again. I am sorry, but they said if I talked, I could see my mother sooner. HMPH, you did not think you were actually being kind to us, did you? A goblin is a goblin in the end. You deserve death for the evil seeds you have sown upon us. The captives shouted their justifications. Ji-Yu-kun stopped listening. To be honest, since the Dark Wolf tribe could crossbreed with goblins to produce offspring, Ji-Yu-kun had stopped letting the goblins in the tribe impregnate these female captives. He had even kept them in relatively decent confinement. He had even decided to show mercy by rescuing them from the goblin nest. But they betrayed him. They even sold out the location of the nest itself. As for the intelligence, although Ji-Yu-kun ensured they would not find anything, once the rumors start spreading, the Goblin Slayer will definitely come sniffing around. The goblin nest he had painstakingly built will inevitably be wiped out. Ji-Yu-chun was no saint. But he was not about to let his hard-earned property be trashed like that. It was time to take action. Time to tie up loose ends. As for dealing with the slave traders, Ji-Yu-chun observed them from the shadows. 2 rank E combatants, and about 3 rank F warriors, accompanied by shield bearers, archers, and a mage, professional adventurers. Ji-Yu-chun was not confident he could take them all down. In fact, there was a high chance he would end up dead. After all, he was currently just an ordinary F-class goblin. Then, in an instant, within the woods, countless saplings suddenly sprouted like ghosts, bursting through the dead leaves and soil. They grew with terrifying speed, reaching 2 meters high in seconds. They formed a dense, suffocating wall of trees, trapping Ji-Yu-chun and the female captives together, sealing them in. This scene sent a jolt of panic through the slave traders. Terrified that their merchandise would escape, they immediately began hacking at the wooden wall, trying to intercept the goblins' flight. They had no intention of letting those female captives go. Either, their plan was to have their fun first, then sell them off as slaves. A violent, powerful barrage of attacks shattered the fragile wooden barrier in an instant. But when the slave traders broke through, their pupils constricted in shock. A cold chill ran down their spines. Inside the perimeter, the 6 female captives were suspended in the air, tightly bound by thick vines. Their necks had been snapped clean. They were dead. They hung there, a gruesome sight. This spectacle made the slave traders' hearts turn cold. They realized in that moment that they had messed with the wrong goblin. They looked at each other in terror and immediately tried to retreat. Quick, we need to find the Goblin Slayer. You have finished your life as a goblin. Simulation settlement beginning. Rating and evaluation. Your performance was beyond expectations. You actually completed 2 missions simultaneously, though you barely met the requirements. The achievement is quite impressive. Not only did you build a goblin nest, but you even allowed the primary host to return to a normal life. Though there was a flaw at the end. You did not save those female captives, but it is a minor detail. Reward, 80% attribute inheritance. Skill plant growth. 1 additional simulation attempt. Evolution template. Select 1. 1000 evolution points. Looking at the system summary, Ji-Yu-chun felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted. He finally realized that his long simulated life had come to an end. 2 months had passed inside, yet only 2 days had gone by in reality. Regarding this rapid passage of time, Ji-Yu-chun was speechless, but as long as he could finish missions and get rewards, increasing his strength was all that mattered. After all, back in the real world, the crises he faced were absolutely terrifying. Attribute inheritance. In this simulation, you gained approximately 800 evolution points. Level synchronized with reality, F rank. Skill proficiency has successfully reached upgrade standards. Discount distribution begins at 80%. The system prompt appears again. After Ji-Yu-chun came back to his senses, a dazzling spread of rewards appeared on the virtual interface. Inheritance reward, 640 evolution points. Skill upgrade, Life Plunder has gained an upgrade opportunity. Host has met the evolution requirements. Initiate evolution. No, not yet. No need to rush the level up. Ji-Yu-chun needed to do the math properly. First, tally up the rewards he had obtained, and what he could try next. He sorted through the rewards from this simulation run, including the skill plant growth, 1 extra simulation chance from 2 triggers, and 1 evolution template selection chance. Life Plunder can be upgraded by 1, plus 640 evolution points. He could barely hold back his excitement. This haul was beyond what Ji-Yu-chun expected, so he checked his current evolution points. Rank F evolution points, 350,800, earned by hunting and killing living creatures, at roughly 1,600 more evolution points, and he could choose to evolve. He could even choose a template, advancing into a mid to high tier goblin variant, and that was not all. Life Plunder could actually be upgraded now. Ji-Yu-chun was keen to see what it would become, so he checked whether to proceed with the skill upgrade. The upgrade for Life Plunder was nothing fancy. Ji-Yu-chun confirmed the upgrade directly. Life Transference. Life Transference. Life Transference can control a creature's life energy and transfer it. The description was simple, but the effect was unexpectedly huge. Ji-Yu-chun was a little startled. After all, from the very start, he wanted Life Plunder. For more than just himself. It could also be used to heal. Now, it seemed, the system had seen through his intentions. With this single upgrade, he could perform life energy transfer. So inside the cave, Ji-Yu-chun used the skill plant growth. 1.5 seconds later, the casting time carried over just like in the simulation. In an instant, a thick vine burst through the soil, brimming with life energy. Ji-Yu-chun immediately used life transference on it, stripping every bit of life energy from the vine, condensing it in his dark green withered hand, forming a silver green, vigorous little sphere. And this was the life energy of the vine, now already shriveled, held in Ji-Yu-chun's hand. So that is how it works, he muttered to himself, then directly absorbed the green sphere into his body. He could clearly feel vitality surging inside him. With this skill, he could heal the newborn mother. He could even drain a creature's life energy from a distance. That was a solid win. Ji-Yu-chun also decided it was time to level up. He would evolve the host. Evolution requirements met. Initiate host evolution check. Evolution templates available. Begin selection Goblin paths. Option A, Goblin Chief. Option B, Goblin Shaman. Option C, Great Goblin. Option D, Ogre. There was actually a race that was not a goblin. Staring at the extra ogre option on the virtual interface, Ji-Yukun felt a bit thrown off. Ogres are different from goblins. They are inherently a mid-tier monster race. Whether it is stamina, size, defense, or strength, they are far beyond ordinary beings. Sometimes they even appear in goblin nests. As an ogre that ends up ruling as king, Ji-Yukun pondered the possibility of evolving into a troll. The prospect was somewhat tempting. However, after further consideration, he decided to drop the idea. After all, once he became a troll, there was no telling what unpredictable changes might occur within the system. Furthermore, it would make choosing a maternal host much more difficult. Even the skills he would acquire might not be suitable for his goals. Thus, Ji-Yukun dismissed the thought. He turned his attention directly to the Goblin Shaman and the Hobgoblin. These were two evolved variants of the goblin race, though they were only mid-tier. Their combat prowess was certainly nothing to sneeze at. Usually, within a goblin nest, they possessed the qualifications to act as leaders. But compared to the Hobgoblin, Ji-Yukun was more satisfied with the Goblin Shaman. The former was massive in size, similar to a troll, yet inferior to one in every aspect. In the cramped confines of a goblin nest, they would find it difficult to move with total freedom. Therefore, Ji-Yukun prioritized the choice of the magic-wielding Goblin Shaman. After all, in a recent simulation, the other goblins had already mistaken him for a shaman. It was a happy accident that suited his current path perfectly. Ji-Yukun proceeded to confirm the evolution. Host Ji-Yukun. Species Goblin Shaman. State larval form. Current status frail physique. Weight 25 kilogram. Height 59 centimeters. Combat skills vitality transfer. Crafting tools sword mastery feign death plant growth. Witchcraft, summon goblin imp. Little devil's heart. Evolution points, 1190 per 1600 acquired via hunting. Biological state acquired after 1 hour of processing. At this very moment, Ji-Yukun slowly stirred from his slumber. The virtual interface of the system panel appeared in his mind. Ji-Yukun could clearly see the changes in himself. He had successfully evolved from an ordinary goblin. His rank had ascended to that of a goblin shaman. However, much to his surprise, his physical state had reverted from an adult body to a larval form. His current status was also marked as frail, but that did not matter much, because this newly acquired witchcraft had piqued Ji-Yukun's interest far more. Summon goblin imp. Staring at this peculiar skill, Ji-Yukun felt a surge of curiosity. Summon Goblin Imp. This was the foundational skill of a goblin shaman. It allowed him to summon a goblin imp that was completely subservient. It could be commanded to perform various tasks. He could even turn ordinary larval goblins into his own loyal goblin imps. The Goblin Imp, a mutated variant of the common goblin, usually produced from the larval stage. They possessed fragile bodies, but their size made them incredibly mobile, and they were gifted with agile and cunning movements. Reading through the skill description, Ji-Yukun's interest deepened. He decided then and there to test the witchcraft. Following a 5-second incantation command, a pentagram materialized on the ground shortly after. A goblin imp emerged from within the light. It looked like a typical goblin child, yet its frame was even smaller, and its appearance was far more grotesque. It had the body of a child, but the withered head of an old man. Regardless, Ji-Yukun wanted to see just how agile it truly was. He looked at the goblin imp, which sat there like a loyal dog, waiting patiently for its master's command. He issued an order. Climb to the top of the cave for me. He, command received. The goblin imp let out a shrill, piercing screech. Then it began to scuttle rapidly on all fours. In the blink of an eye, it reached the stone wall. Then, without any hesitation, it scaled the stone wall directly. It even seemed to defy gravity. In that moment, it reached the cave's opening above Ji-Yukun. This level of agility was even greater than a goblin scout's. This pleased Ji-Yukun greatly. So, he sent the goblin imp out to gather intelligence for him. After being offline for 2 days, Ji-Yukun was curious. Within the giant tree forest, had anything new occurred? Receiving the command, the goblin imp let out another stuttering cackle and headed towards the cave's exit. It slipped through a crack in the rocks, leaving the cover of the vines behind. Getting out into the open world was not bad. At this moment, Ji-Yukun also looked at his own body. Compared to the original short, green body of a goblin, there was no significant difference. However, he now had some clothes. It was a pitch-black, hooded robe. It completely concealed his body within it. A little curious, Ji-Yukun tried to activate the robe slightly. Unexpectedly, the next second, he had vanished from his spot. He had achieved invisibility. So that is how it is. Ji-Yukun had not expected that a goblin shaman possessed a cloak of invisibility, rather than a spell. This now secured his means of survival. He could turn invisible. However, after about a minute, Ji-Yukun found that the robe's invisibility function had disappeared, and he could not reactivate it. It seemed he had to wait for 5 minutes. This was somewhat of a letdown. Alright, now that the long-awaited simulation is over, I seem to have left something behind. A blonde girl, a human adventurer. Lily should be in the cave. He remembered he still had a hostage. Ji-Yukun headed towards the cave to check, but he never expected that in the next second, he would feel his goblin imp die. The goblin imp is dead. Slightly alarmed, Ji-Yukun had just sent it out to scout the area. It has not been long, has it? How could it be dead already? This change made Ji-Yukun very alert and cautious. After all, with the goblin imp's agility, an ordinary monster would not be able to kill it instantly. Looking at it this way, it is possible that a terrifying high-level monster is nearby, and it killed the goblin imp. Thinking this, Ji-Yukun thought about the current dangers he faced in reality. One is the overlord of the giant tree forest, the Griffin. The other is the rookie adventurer party, the adventurers from Black Prison who are with the blonde girl, Lily. The former is still manageable. Given the griffin's size, it can't enter this hidden cave of mine. But if it is the human adventurers, then I am in trouble. Humans have professions like scouts. It's possible they could easily discover the location of my cave and then report the situation. After they go back, I will be surrounded and hunted down by a large group of adventurers. Ji-Yukun is only a G-class goblin shaman after all. He does not have the strength to fight 10 enemies at once. I still need to develop. Therefore, Ji-Yukun chose to lay low for now. I won't go out now. I will wait until nightfall to go out and check the situation. After all, when human adventurers are in the wild, a bonfire is a must at night. Otherwise, with their strength, they would not even know if a monster ambushed them. With that in mind, Ji-Yukun headed straight for the cave where the adventurer, Lily, was being held. He decided to get some clear answers from her. Inside the cave, the blonde girl, Lily, had already been imprisoned for 2 long days. During this time, her hands and feet were bound by ropes, making escape impossible. If she struggled too much, she would find it hard to get back up after falling. So she had not dared to move much at all. She could only wait bitterly for Ji-Yu-Chun's arrival. Of course, when it came to Ji-Yu-Chun, this goblin, Lily's heart was still filled with fear. After all, she was a female captive, and he was a goblin. In such a situation, it was hard for Lily not to imagine scenarios of being humiliated and tormented by him, even being forced to conceive and give birth to a hideous goblin baby. Therefore, she would rather be locked up here until she died than be defiled by a goblin. However, 2 days had passed, as she was left all alone, imprisoned in this pitch-black cave, with no food. She was now starving and parched, in a state of both thirst and hunger. She began to hope, a little, that Ji-Yukun would come to check on her, and perhaps provide some food and water needed for survival. Normally, because her brother was a powerful adventurer, she was adored by everyone. This kind of agonizing confinement, when had she ever suffered like this? The temper of a pampered young lady had now been worn down almost completely. She started to feel homesick and wanted to cry. The blonde girl, Lily, could not help but start crying again in the dim, silent cave. Unexpectedly, at that moment, the faint sound of footsteps echoed. Ji-Yukun, now a goblin shaman, followed right after. I have locked you up for 2 days. You should have learned your lesson by now, right? Facing the adventurer, who was sobbing like a little girl, Ji-Yukun, of course, would not reveal that he had entered a simulation. Instead, he changed his story, making her believe this was her punishment. Meanwhile, Lily, all of a sudden, hearing the voice of the goblin who had imprisoned her again, naturally forgot to cry. Instead, she looked at him with an expression of disbelief, her eyes a mix of joy and fear. Finally, she put on a brave face. You vile goblin, this lady is not afraid of you. Ha, why have you become a goblin shaman? Trying to act tough. Lily also noticed the change in Ji-Yu-Chen. She never expected that, after not seeing him for 2 days. He would now be a goblin shaman. A goblin shaman. That is a mid-tier species within the goblin race. They even have the right to control an entire goblin lair. Suddenly, Lily, faced with such a powerful monster, could not help but feel timid and afraid. She watched Ji-Yukun cautiously. Let me go home. The matter of you imprisoning me, this lady will absolutely let it slide. I won't let my brother come after you. As she spoke, Lily's tone gradually weakened. She was not a fool. She has been locked up here for so long. How could she possibly be released so easily? However, Ji-Yu-Chen's next words made his eyes light up. He was overjoyed. All right. I can let you go, but that depends on the situation. An idea formed in Ji-Yu-Chen's mind. Keeping this blonde girl who is still wet behind the ears around is pretty much useless. He did not have much desire to procreate anyway. And even if he were to choose a partner, he would not be interested in Lily. This little girl barely has any meat on her bones. Ji-Yukun much preferred mature curvy women, like married ladies and gentlewomen, the kind of top-tier beauties who know how to strike a pose and are full of nutrients. So he decided to get rid of a nuisance. He would release Lily. Really? Suddenly hearing the words she most wanted to hear, Lily looked at Ji-Yukun in disbelief. But then a wave of worry washed over her. She felt that a cunning and evil goblin like this one was probably just tricking her, letting her feel a glimmer of hope, only to cruelly extinguish it. That would be the most despicable thing to do. It depends on the situation. There are some things I want to know. You must tell me everything. If I am satisfied, letting you go is not out of the question. With that said, Ji-Yukun stated what he wanted to know. He had been stuck here for a long time. He still did not know much about this other world. If he could get some information from this human, Lily, it would be for the best. Afterward, desperate to escape her confinement, the blonde girl, Lily, had lost her initial arrogance and stubbornness. She began to act cautiously. She explained things to Ji-Yukun in a soft, quiet voice. As time slowly passed, night fell. Night descended upon the giant tree forest. Ji-Yu-Chun left the cave where Lily was being held. After giving her some water to quench her thirst, he began to organize the information she had provided. According to Lily, this forest is part of the Lion Griffin Mountains. It is ruled by a terrifying griffin, and this griffin is a fearsome high-level monster. High-level monsters usually require top-tier adventurers to even be qualified to challenge them, but even then, success is not guaranteed. It still requires many adventurers to form a party to even stand a chance. As for the place where he attacked Lily, the forest she called the Giant Tree Forest is a remote border region, far from the heart of the Lion Griffin Mountains. Therefore, it generally does not attract the griffin's attention. Beyond the Lion Griffin Mountains lies the Amber Kingdom. The kingdom where Lily and her fellow adventurers are from. The Amber Kingdom is close to the Myriad Beast Mountain Range, and the Myriad Beast Mountain Range is home to many terrifying magical beasts. Even the griffin only occupies the outer perimeter. It merely has its own mountain territory there. That is why the Adventurers Guild in the Amber Kingdom thrives. It attracts adventurers coveting the rich resources from magical beasts from all over the world. Besides the Amber Kingdom, there are other kingdoms scattered around. However, aside from a few exceptions, none can match the overall power of the Amber Kingdom. After talking about the kingdoms, the other major power is the terrifying Demon Lord's army. That is right. In this world, heroes and demon lords exist. It is even rumored that gods exist, with many religions and spiritual powers. The Demon Lord has his own kingdom, known as the Land of the Dead. It is filled with many terrifying monsters and demonic races. They stand in opposition to humanity. Of course, Ji-Yu-Chen does not care much about these worldly affairs right now. After all, they are too far removed from him. After understanding all this, Ji-Yu-Chen has now reached the mouth of the cave. He summons several goblin minions. He needs to scout the outside world to see exactly what kind of danger is lurking out there. Something is prowling near the shelter he worked so hard to find. He must find a way to deal with it. Goblins, move out. Scout the area for me. Check if there are any humans or monsters near the cave. Search the perimeter. Ji Yu Chen assigns tasks to the goblin minions. Having received their orders, they let out a series of shrill cackles. Then they slip through the rocky crevices and leave the cave, heading into the unknown, while Ji Yu Chen prepares to wait patiently for intel from his minions. Something completely unexpected happens. The minions have not been gone long before they are ambushed. One is killed instantly. Ji Yu Chen's heart sinks immediately. The enemy is right outside the cave. Or rather, they have already discovered his hiding place. His heart pounds against his ribs. Ji Yu Chen realizes things have gone south. He hurriedly retreats toward the depths of the cave. He can feel death closing in. If I do not run now, I am dead meat. Must escape. No. He even casts a growth spell on the nearby flora, summoning several walls of thorns to block the entrance. Ji Yu Chen rushes into the chamber where Lily is being held. She had finally managed to get some water, but having drunk too much, she is currently squatting to relieve herself. Seeing Ji Yu Kun barge in so suddenly, she is so startled that she loses control of her muscles. No, please stop. Lily instinctively fears the worst. She thinks Ji Yu Chen's primal instincts have taken over, and that he intends to violate her. She can't help but scream in terror. That scream, ironically, further exposes the fact that there is someone inside the cave. But Ji Yu Chen does not have time for niceties. Their position is compromised anyway. Judging by the aggression, it must be human adventurers. They are likely here to rescue Lily. Ji Yu Chen can't let her go now. He absolutely cannot let her escape. He must take her as a hostage to ensure his own survival. Damn it. No time to wait for her to fix her dress. Ji Yu Chen summons two muscular goblin minions. They hoist Lily up between them, and they begin their frantic escape. Just like that, Ji Yu Chen leads his hostage deeper into the cave system. He had scouted this path before. This tunnel goes deep. However, it most likely leads to another exit. To evade the human adventurer's hunt, Ji Yu Chen has no other choice. What do you think you are doing? You filthy goblin. Caught off guard, Lily is carried off by the goblins Ji Yu Chen summoned. The blonde noblewoman shouts in panic and rage. She has no idea what his sudden move means. Shut up. Ji Yu Chen is not in the mood to deal with her. He delivers a sharp backhand across her face. Her cheek swells red instantly. In that moment, Lily does not dare to utter another arrogant word. She submissively clutches her burning cheek, her eyes welling with tears. She looks utterly aggrieved, whimpering internally. My brother will definitely come for me. When that happens, I will make you my pet. I will bully you until you wish you were dead. Seeing that Lily has finally gone quiet, Ji Yu Chen breathes a sigh of relief. He continues to push forward. But as they run, he was a bit puzzled. This had to be resolved. He did not understand. Lily's brother was a black iron ranked adventurer. He had not reached such a high tier station yet. So why would specialized adventurers be coming to the rescue now? Otherwise, given how well he had covered his tracks, if it were not for a skilled tracker, it would be impossible to find him this quickly. Faced with this question, Ji Yu Chen interrogated Lily. At this, she looked a bit smug. She boasted arrogantly. It was obvious. It seems Ji Yu Kun finally knew. He had messed with the wrong person. This lady, happened to be the Count's precious daughter, the one and only Lily, admired by everyone in town. You are a Count's daughter. Hearing Lily's smug declaration, Ji Yu Chen was taken aback for a moment. He then noticed Lily's attire. It was indeed quite exquisite. She was even wearing perfume. However, because of his past life's experience, Ji Yu Chen, for a moment, did not think there was anything out of place. He had just assumed she was some rich young lady, and nothing more. After all, in the modern world, everyone is dressed to the nines. Looking at it now, he had been misled by his own knowledge. To think that he would be tripped up by such a minor detail. Ji Yu Kun was a little annoyed, but he also felt some resentment towards Lily. A Count's daughter like you. How could you possibly be out here without powerful personal guards? Instead, you are with two incompetent fools with no combat experience. Rookie adventurers. HMPH. This lady hates the strict discipline of my father and brother. So this time, I secretly forced those two clueless rookie adventurers to take me to catch a sly rabbit. You fool, to be screwed over by this idiot's actions. Ji Yu Kun slapped her again, to vent his frustration. The blow instantly brought tears to Lily's eyes. Her face was a picture of grievance. Her eyes glared defiantly at Ji Yu Chen, but she was all bark and no bite. She was being cautious, afraid of being hit again for her arrogant smugness. It is not like I wanted to be caught by you. Ignoring Lily's grievances, Ji Yu Kun finally understood why he was so quickly targeted by human adventurers. He himself had captured the daughter of the most powerful Count in their town. Faced with a hefty bounty, some powerful adventurers would definitely be tempted. No wonder he was found so quickly by a skilled tracker. Found in a flash. Damn it. Of all the people to catch, I have caught a hot potato. He was furious with Lily. This was the first time Ji Yu Chen had been put in danger because of someone else. He immediately tried to escape, fleeing towards the depths of the tunnel. He wanted to get away with this burden, Lily, but facing a professional, high-tier tracker, an adventurer, Ji Yu Chen was now facing an unprecedented crisis. Swoosh. While running, Ji Yu Chen only heard the goblin imp next to him let out a sharp, piercing scream, followed by Lily's pained and aggrieved cry. Ji Yu Kun stopped in his tracks immediately. He looked at the rampaging goblin imp. He was puzzled, but then he saw. A tiny fine needle had pierced through the imp's head. A realization instantly dawned on him. Shocked, he had run into an adventurer with incredible sword skills. Ji Yu Chen was so scared he did not even dare to take Lily with him. He just turned tail and ran. Lily was left completely dumbfounded. But the next second, thwack! Ji Yu Chen's right leg suddenly lost all its strength. He lost his balance and fell to the ground in a pathetic heap. He looked at his right leg, which felt numb. He found it had been hit by a fine needle. He could not move. In that instant, Ji Yu Chen's pupils constricted. He looked back in absolute terror at the sound of footsteps, gradually approaching from behind. It was a patch of darkness, but under the cover of night, an adventurer dressed like a ranger slowly emerged. As the figure drew closer, Ji Yu Kun suddenly realized the newcomer was a tall, pointy-eared elf, and her skin was a dark, dusky color. Her long hair was also white. Clearly, this was a dark elf. This is an adventurer. Seeing this, Lily could not help but be overjoyed. She then looked at Ji Yu Chen, who was on the ground, unable to escape. A triumphant, malicious smile, unbecoming of a noble lady, spread across her face. Looks like the tables are about to turn. You pitiful goblin. I, the lady, will keep my promise. I will make you my slave and torture you to death. Hearing the countess's daughter, Lily's incomparably smug laughter. He, with his right leg now numb and paralyzed, panicked. He quickly endured the pain and pulled out the fine needle from his kneecap, wanting to continue his escape. But with his current speed after being injured, it was nothing more than a pathetic crawl on the ground. Ji-Yu-chun had no escape route now. He was completely cornered by this pursuing dark elf. This adventurer, the path to survival. Ki-igi. Finally I, the lady, am finally saved. Watching the adventurer, who came to rescue her, while the goblin, who had tormented her, was lying wretchedly on the ground. Lily at this moment was simply at the peak of excitement and joy. There was nothing more satisfying than turning the tables on an enemy. Nothing could be more delightful. If there was, it would be to capture him and make him a slave, to bully and torment him day and night. A playful glint flashed in her eyes. Lily immediately had an idea. She would take Ji-Yu-chun back home. From now on, he would be her slave. Hey, adventurer. I do not care if you are a dark elf or a forest elf. In any case, you can't kill this filthy goblin right now. I, the lady, am taking him home with me. He is going to be my little slave. Hee. Lily let out a very amused, wicked laugh. Listening to this, Ji-Yu-kun felt a chill run down his spine. Just like humans being captured. If a goblin were to be captured by humans as a slave, his chances of surviving would be slim to none. After all, goblins are universally despised and hunted. If he were taken away by Lily as a slave, in the future, not only would he become an object for her sadistic pleasure, he might even be killed one day on a whim. I can't believe it all went south. Ji-Yu-kun gritted his teeth, but he still crawled on the ground, unwilling to give up. He even managed to get to his feet as he crawled, desperately limping and stumbling forward to escape. And now, it was Lily's turn to be the master. She continued to mock Ji-Yu-chun arrogantly. Keep struggling, it is useless. From now on, you are my goblin slave. Every bit of grievance I have suffered, I am going to vent it all back onto you. But just as Lily was acting incredibly haughty, suddenly, that silent, powerful pursuer caught up. The dark elf, hiding in the shadows, finally revealed herself. Is she as tough as you? Faced with the dark elf adventurer's sudden interrogation, Lily was stunned for a moment. She immediately pulled back her smile, thinking with some confusion. Even I find it strange. This goblin, why is he so different from the ordinary ones? His brain is not controlled by evil lust. Instead, he is exceptionally calm and rational. But a goblin like this is actually worth being my slave. Is that so? Hearing Lily's answer, the dark elf fell silent for a while, then stepped out from the darkness. Dark skin, long white hair, dressed in simple, thick red clothing, which could not hide her tall and curvaceous figure. At that moment, she approached Ji-Yu-chun with a grim expression. With one kick, she pinned the struggling goblin to the ground. Looking down coldly at him, Ji-Yu-kun collapsed in pain, then glared fiercely at this dark elf who had humiliated him. If it were not for her, he would not be in this situation. However, once Ji-Yu-chun saw her face clearly, his pupils instantly contracted. This dark elf. She was actually the one from his last simulation. The original mother he had saved. No. That is impossible. Ji-Yu-chun's heart was in shock. He could not believe that he would encounter such a bizarre situation in reality. This is beyond surreal. My original mother. How could I possibly meet her in the real world? This must be some kind of hallucination. She just looks similar. That is all. That is what I will tell myself. Ji-Yu-chun quickly looked away, not daring to make eye contact. But the dark elf's pupils also shrank. The more she looked, the more familiar he became. This damnable goblin was exactly the son who had imprisoned and humiliated her. That is right. Back in that dark, sunless goblin nest, he had shamed his mother, which was her. She never expected to meet him again, and to see that he had even become a goblin shaman. Rage, disgust, and even a twisted maternal love flooded Tina's heart in an instant. She could hardly imagine it. After all these years, she would actually cross paths with him again. The one born from the shame of being a captive in that goblin den. This goblin shaman is her son. Suddenly, her vision went dark. Tina could not handle the overwhelming shock and fainted on the spot. Ji-Yu-kun did not expect it either. Why did this dark elf suddenly pass out? Lily was also startled, then shouted in panic, "Why did you suddenly pass out like that? Wake up, quickly. What kind of mess is this?" After let out a fierce roar, Ji-Yu-chun immediately summoned two long-armed imps. "Ji, get me out of here right now." He barked orders directly at the small goblins. They hoisted Ji-Yu-chun up with both hands, and fled straight into the depths of the tunnel. Seeing this, Lily immediately grew anxious. She tried to chase after them to seize Ji-Yu-chun. "Don't you dare take this lady's goblin slave. Don't even think about escaping." However, in the middle of the pursuit, Lily took a nasty spill and face-planted onto the ground, wiping away tears of pain with both hands. She watched Ji-Yu-chun's departure with a face full of resentment. Shortly after, other adventurers came rushing through the same tunnel, but by then, Ji-Yu-kun had already vanished without a trace. You useless bunch of trash. Facing the high-rank adventurers who came to rescue her, Lily showed not a shred of gratitude. Instead, she lashed out with an angry scolding. Her small face was twisted with the frustration of a girl denied her favorite toy. This dark elf also fainted quite suddenly. Useless thing. Lily directly kicked the dark elf, who was being propped up by a companion. Tina, the dark elf, was gradually regaining consciousness. Lily vented her rage, and in the face of Lily's fury, as well as the confused inquiries of her companions, Tina remained completely silent throughout. However, her mind was racing incessantly. She had actually encountered her former goblin son. What on earth should she do now? Looking at the empty, pitch-black tunnel in the distance, Tina's eyes were filled with complex emotions. After all, back in that goblin nest, before she lost consciousness, she had felt it. She had been dragged toward the exit by her goblin son. Subsequently, she was saved by the arriving goblin slayer. In other words, her son had actually saved her. But with a heavy heart, Tina followed behind her companions, listening to Lily's constant tantrums as they left the goblin nest. At the same time, carried on the back of a small goblin, Ji-Yu-chun, who had rapidly escaped the tunnel, finally reached the end of the path. Passing through a mountain peak, he left the giant tree forest and arrived at the Lion Griffin Mountains, into the territory controlled by that legendary beast. And at this very moment, looking at the griffin fledgling before him, as large as a small hill, Ji-Yu-chun panicked, staring at the griffin fledgling in front of him. Ji-Yu-chun's heart began to race with tension. He never expected that, just as he escaped the dangerous tunnel and crossed a mountain to get here, he would run straight into a griffin fledgling the moment he emerged. As for why his luck was so abysmal, Ji-Yu-chun observed his surroundings. He discovered that he was actually at a high point on a cliff, inside a massive cave. There were no other messy tunnels, only the one he came from, the small tunnel leading back to the giant tree forest. However, along the way, that tunnel had become narrower and narrower. Finally, only with his short goblin stature did he manage to barely squeeze through. So for now, he did not have to fear pursuers from behind. Even if there were any, they could not fit through. Therefore, Ji-Yu-chun had not anticipated that he would stumble directly into the cave where the griffin fledgling lived. Currently, the creature was fast asleep, snoring away, completely unaware that a goblin had just broken into its home. This is bad. I need to escape immediately. Panic starts to set in, and Ji-Yu-chun considers retreating the way he came, returning to the safety of the tunnel. But then a second thought occurs to him. If I go back now, I will likely be captured by Lily and her group. There is definitely no going back. It would be better to just stay here from now on. A natural cave on a steep cliff. There is no safer hideout than this. Therefore, if I want to claim this cave as my own, I must eliminate everything that stands in my way. In an instant, his gaze turns cold and ruthless. Ji-Yu-chun quietly observes the young griffin he had saved before. Judging by its size, Ji-Yu-chun estimates this griffin must be at least D+ class. It could even be E class or E+ class. Normally, if I encountered it head-on, I would probably turn tail and run as fast as I could. I would not dare try to outmaneuver it. But things are different now. I am in the perfect position for a sneak attack. The young griffin. It is fast asleep. Perhaps because this is its home turf, and it is protected by a powerful griffin mother. Usually, it has no natural enemies or monsters that dare to challenge it. That is why it is letting its guard down like this. It lacks the basic instincts of a wild beast. It has not even realized that inside its own home, a dangerous, uninvited guest has arrived. Since that is the case, Ji-Yu-chun certainly won't play nice. He is going to kill this young griffin. His dark green hideous face looks terrifyingly distorted in the dim light. Ji-Yu-chun looks at his injured right leg, feeling the emptiness in his stomach. Ji-Yu-chun has reached the point of no return. Furthermore, this is the first step to verifying his strength. Without a shred of hesitation or worry, Ji-Yu-chun quietly evaluates his sleeping target. It is still sleeping soundly and carelessly. So, Ji-Yu-chun stealthily activates a skill. Plant growth. Instantly, the area around the griffin is surrounded by dense, thorny brambles. Immediately following that, Ji-Yu-chun summons 2 goblin minions. Kiki. Shut your mouths. The 2 of you, crawl onto the griffin's back right now. Find a way to gouge its eyes out. The other one, crawl to its backside. When the time comes, burrow straight inside. Tear its rectum to shreds. Remember my command. Wait until I initiate the attack. Then strike all at once. The goblin minions obey with a cackle. Their scrawny bodies crawl up, scaling the griffin without being detected. Ji-Yu-chun breathes a sigh of relief at the sight. Once they are in position, he looks at the griffin with a grim expression. Launch the assault. In a flash, countless thick vines burst from the ground. They coil violently around the griffin's body. The immense pressure causes the griffin an unprecedented level of pain. The beast is startled awake from its slumber. It opens its eyes, but before it can scan its surroundings, it hears a series of sinister, high-pitched giggles. Suddenly, its world goes dark as it loses its sight. At the same time, at its rear, it feels a foreign object ramming inside, tearing its body apart from within. In less than a second, the griffin experiences agony beyond description. Before a scream can even escape its throat, it feels its life force draining away rapidly. Its body grows weaker and weaker. The shrill cries of the bird fade away, completely unable to call for help. And just like that, the pitiful young griffin cub was taken down by Ji-Yu-chun's meticulously planned ambush. It did not even last 10 seconds before it perished. It could not even manage a cry for help. You have slain a griffin, young cub. 200 evolution points acquired. Evolution points, 1390 per 1600, so you get points by hunting creatures. Huh. Looking at the system notification, and the mountain-like corpse of the massive griffin on the ground, Ji-Yu-chun had not expected his sneak attack to succeed. He had to be careful. If the griffin had let out a shriek before dying, it would have undoubtedly caused a stir throughout the entire Lion Griffin Mountains. The many griffins would have sensed the disturbance, and flocked here to provide support. Even the master of this mountain range, the terrifying alpha griffin, would have come. At that point, he would have been a dead man. But thankfully, under the assault of his 4 different attacks, the griffin ultimately died from his life force transfer. It could not even let out a piercing death cry. Ji-Yu-chun looked at his hand, at the incredibly dense silver-green orb of life force. He was quite pleased. Meanwhile, the goblin minions that had emerged from the griffin's body also seemed to be drawn to the energy in Ji-Yu-chun's hand. They wanted a piece of the pie. However, when faced with insubordination from his underlings, Ji-Yu-chun had never been one for mercy. He directly cast plant growth, finishing off the goblin minion. He even killed the one that was not involved, just to be thorough. This life force should be enough to heal my injuries. His right leg was still throbbing with a dull ache. It was even on the verge of going numb and losing all sensation. Ji-Yu-chun looked at the life orb, radiating a silver-green glow, and swallowed it whole. Instantly, the concentrated life energy from the alpha-class monster, the griffin, erupted within Ji-Yu-chun's body. And in that moment, Ji-Yu-chun felt that his injuries had completely healed in an instant. The majority of the remaining life energy then began to surge violently within his body. Soon, Ji-Yu-chun felt his body begin to grow. Even without evolving, his physique transformed from its original short and scrawny state into something much healthier. He was now about 1.5 meters tall and weighed over 60 kilograms. While this build is equivalent to a child's among humans, for a goblin, it was on par with an adult common goblin. A robust one at that. Feeling his body become vigorous and powerful, Ji-Yu-chun, the goblin shaman, had also shed his state of weakness. He had become strong. At the very least, he could now use his skills. After his injuries healed, Ji-Yu-chun used plant growth to directly summon a wall of thorny vines, blocking the cave entrance. It concealed their position from any prying eyes outside. After all, now that the original master, the griffin, and its cub had been dealt with by him, he had to start fortifying this cave. Ji Yu-chun planned to make this cave disappear. In other words, to make it impossible for outsiders to discover that there was a cave here at all. As for how to do it, Ji Yu-chun already had a plan. Now possessing a healthy physique, Ji Yu-chun could now summon 4 armored bell minions at once. Yiji Zida. You lot, start digging out the cave now. Carve out a tunnel. Finally, use mud and soil to cover the green vine wall outside. Make it vanish into the cliffside. After giving the order, Ji Yu-chun took a few bites of the griffin meat. Once he had his fill, he immediately fell asleep. After all, it had been a long time since he had last rested. After a long-awaited sleep, Ji Yu-chun felt his physical condition had improved significantly. At the very least, he was full of vitality. And at that moment, Ji Yu-chun also discovered that the cave had undergone a major transformation. Aside from the griffin cub's corpse still in the corner, several tunnels had already been dug out of the cave. Ji Yu-chun walked down each one. He found that they all led to the surface. As for the outside of the cave, the entrance that had been blocked by the wall of thorns was now being plastered over by the goblin minions, with a mixture of mud and water. The color was uniform. You would not notice it without a closer look. It was impossible to tell that a cave was ever here. Ji Yu-chun was very satisfied. As for those goblin minions who had helped so much, where had they gone? Ji Yu-chun sensed their location. He discovered they had already entered the Lion Griffin Mountains to find food. However, this place was far more dangerous than the giant tree forest. Of the 4 goblin minions, 3 were already dead. The last one had also perished just a moment ago. Of course, these goblin minions were always disposable fodder to begin with. Ji Yu-chun did not feel it was much of a loss. After all, he could summon more whenever he pleased. Now that his life force had reached a robust state, he could even summon 4 at once. Therefore, there was no need to worry. However, regarding the cave's specific concealment, Ji Yu-chun decided he still needed to continue decorating it. The sky was now gradually turning white. The morning sun was rising in the east. It was still dawn. Fearing the arrival of daylight, Ji Yu-chun did not hesitate. He got straight to work. First, he used plant growth at the cave entrance. He made a pine tree sprout from the steep cliff. The pine tree's massive branches and leaves concealed most of the cave entrance, keeping it hidden. As for the tunnels leading to the surface, Ji Yu-chun also meticulously carved out the shape of stone steps, and by frequently using plant growth, he summoned vines that spread throughout the entire tunnel, turning it into a green, vegetative passage. It was no longer monotonous, and could also hinder an enemy's movement. Finally, he came to the surface, just like the cave he lived in before. These exits were also located beneath steep cliffs, within a 1 or 2 meter radius. There were no tree branches, only weeds. Ji Yu-chun took the opportunity to summon vines that grew along the cliff face, acting as a natural, hidden screen for the cave. At the same time, he concealed all 3 cave entrances. Now, they looked completely seamless. After all, with plant growth, this excellent wood element magic skill, Ji Yu-chun, this goblin shaman, could also earn the title Friend of the Forest. After finishing all this, the sky had just brightened. The sunlight was intense. Ji Yu-chun also felt quite exhausted. The excessive use of his skills had taken its toll. So he retraced his steps, returning to the lair 100 meters above. The nest was now filled with all sorts of plants. The air was incredibly fresh, like a primeval forest. Meanwhile, the griffin cub's corpse had been completely butchered by Ji Yu-chun. The feathers were used to make a nest for sleeping. The flesh and blood could be used as food to fill his stomach. It was stored in a deeper layer, in a cave used as a cold storage. This way, I won't have to go out hunting so frequently. All it takes is pulling the pre-portioned food from the cold storage, then tossing it over the fire to roast. As for the most critical issue, the water source, Ji Yu-chun directly summoned a bottle tree. Its exterior resembles a round bamboo cylinder, topped with a massive canopy full of peach blossoms. It was a plant from his previous world, capable of storing a massive amount of water. By simply piercing a hole in the trunk, pure clear water would come flowing out. Even Ji Yu-chun had not expected that he could summon such a plant through mere imagination. He was genuinely shocked. Thus, one after another, he summoned familiar sights from his past life, a multitude of vibrant, colorful sacred flowers. Of course, after playing around for a moment, Ji Yu-chun put an end to it. After all, he is currently facing some very troublesome matters. First, this location is situated within the Lion Griffin Mountains, which is the vast territory of those legendary magical beasts. He is naturally under the constant threat of their rule. One wrong move, and he might be hunted for sport by those griffin fledglings. Venturing outside is extremely difficult. Then there's the matter of the Earl's daughter, Lily. Ji Yu-chun's current miserable state is all thanks to her. He never expected her to be the daughter of a fallen earl. Because of that, high-level adventurers tracked him down instantly. He almost died. But thinking back to that dark elf, how she suddenly fainted like that, Ji Yu-chun felt something was strange. After all, she looked almost identical to the mother host in his previous simulation. This baffled Ji Yu-chun greatly. However, there's no use overthinking it. She is already gone. Ji Yu-chun could not possibly double back to chase after that Lily girl either. But as for those who would capture me as a slave, torturing me for their own sick pleasure, I have plans for them. Furthermore, Ji Yu-chun does not want to attract the attention of the goblin slayer. For now, I must increase my strength as quickly as possible. Ji Yu-chun let out a long breath. He realized that as a goblin, every step is a struggle. A single moment of carelessness could cost him his life. Only power is an eternal protective charm. Moreover, he has made a decision. Once he is strong enough, he plans to find that dark elf, to investigate, and see if she truly is his birth mother. That mother whom he had once imprisoned and defiled. With these thoughts in mind, Ji Yu-chun prepared to begin the 4th simulation. Congratulations on your reincarnation into another world. Please select your mother host. A. Holy church nun. B. Evil. Lustful succubus. C. Seductive. Sinister witch. D. Ugly earth spirit. E. Vengeful mage. I should probably choose the mage. Just as Ji Yu-chun was observing the choices, suddenly, a violent ear-splitting screech erupted. The sharp frequency pierced his eardrums directly. His whole body buzzed violently. His brain was ringing. What is going on? He was shaken to the core. He never expected a mere sound could injure him this badly. In shock, Ji Yu-chun hurriedly called upon the plants, transferring their vitality into his own body to heal his wounds. Then he cautiously approached the cave entrance. Walking on eggshells, he peered through a crack to look outside. There, 10 kilometers away in the Lion Griffin Mountains, was an absolutely colossal being. A majestic griffin, dozens of meters in size, was currently covered in bloody gashes. Its body was riddled with scars, and the territory it occupied. Hundreds of meters of trees around have been snapped clean in half. It is obvious that a massive battle just took place here. This is the true master of the Lion Griffin Mountains. The griffin. Ji-Yu-chun immediately recognized the target. He never expected it to be wounded to such a degree. Taking a closer look, he discovered that not far from the griffin, in the woods, a team of human adventurers was present. They were fleeing in a desperate rush. A human knight with a severed arm, a busty mage whose hat was knocked askew, an elf archer with her demonic bow snapped in two, and a werewolf warrior with a gaping hole through his chest. It is quite clear they were the ones who just clashed with the griffin, an elite party of combat-hardened adventurers. To think that even they failed to take it down. Instead, they suffered heavy casualties and were forced into a humiliating retreat. They did not dare to stop for even a second. The strength of that griffin is simply terrifying. He felt a jolt of shock in his heart. Even a high-tier adventurer squad could not handle it. They could not even admit the griffin had actually been a bit frightening. Just now, it remained perched within the Lion Griffin Mountains. Meanwhile, within Ji-Yu-chen's line of sight, the griffin unexpectedly did not give chase. Instead, it stared fiercely at those humans, revealing a gaze of feminine-like resentment and spite. Suddenly, the griffin seemed to sense someone spying on it from afar. Its deadly gaze immediately darted toward him. Ji-Yu-chun was instantly spooked, pulling his head back into the cave. He did not dare to peek ever again, not until he felt the fluctuations in the air subside. After cautiously observing the griffin flap its wings and leave, did he finally breathe a sigh of relief. Damn it, I hope I have not been marked by that griffin. Doubt lingered in his mind. However, Ji-Yu-chun could not be certain. Of course, looking at the situation, the griffin seemed heavily injured too. It probably won't come looking for trouble with me. Ji-Yu-chun exhaled deeply. Immediately, he hurriedly began the simulation. He needed to increase his power as quickly as possible. This isekai world is simply too dangerous. Congratulations, you've been reincarnated into an alternate world. Please select your birth host. A. Holy Church Monk. B. Evil High Succubus. C. Enchanting Dark Witch. D. Hideous Dwarf. E. Vengeful Sorceress. The church. That is probably the religious authority in the kingdom. Those usually have adventurers coming in for bounties. Still shaken by the griffin's power, Ji-Yu-chun immediately decided to go with a female mage type. He began selecting his birth host. Ji-Yu-chun was not interested in the succubus for now. After all, he could not stand the reputation of that monster race. As for the dark witch and the hideous dwarf, they were just mid-tier monster races. Ji-Yu-chun could not see any potential in them. He had zero interest. But that last one, the vengeful sorceress. Now that really piqued Ji-Yu-chun's interest. Does vengeful mean seeking revenge against goblins? Or what kind of revenge is it? Faced with this ambiguous boundary, Ji-Yu-chun decided to choose her. After all, where there is revenge, there will inevitably be slaughter. Ji-Yu-chun desperately needed evolution points to level up. Thus, he made his choice decisively. Please select your birth location. A. Large Goblin Den. B. Goblin Cavalry Nest. C. Goblin King's Lair. D. Ordinary Goblin Den. Ji-Yu-chun did not hesitate to pick the Ordinary Goblin Den. I am not very strong right now. It is safer to take things slow. Selection confirmed. Host Ji-Yu-chun. Species Goblin Shaman. Status Larva. Build robust. Weight 50 kilograms. Height 150 centimeters. Combat power increased. Skill life transfer. Tool crafting. Sword mastery. Feign death. Plant growth. Witchcraft. Summon goblin minion. Points 1390 1600. Hunt creatures to acquire a birth mother. Tier 1 human mage. There is no familiar scent of blood here. The air only carries a faint damp mustiness. Ji-Yu-chun stares at the display. Surprisingly, his attribute panel remains completely unchanged. Something is off. He immediately scans his surroundings. He realizes this is indeed a goblin nest. However, it is vastly different from the usual ones. The entire den is illuminated by numerous torches. The visibility is dim, but it is far from pitch black. And at this very moment, a massive swarm of goblins has gathered together. There are over 50 of them, a terrifying number. It looks like they are preparing for a collective raid. They are baring their fangs and snarling. They seem incredibly excited. At the stone platform in front of the goblin army stands a human female mage. With a grim expression, she waves her staff. She announces the plan. I have one command for you. Go forth and pillage. Slaughter the village. Seize all the women. Bring them back to breed and develop. We will expand our tribe. We won't stop until that damn woman shows herself. As she utters the last sentence, the mage's face twists into a look of pure, cold malice. She grinds her teeth in rage. She seems to harbor a deep, burning hatred for this mysterious woman. Mini witch. Reborn as a goblin shaman. Please select a skill from the racial traits of your birth mother. Randomly drawing one skill. A virtual screen suddenly pops up. Ji-Yu-chun stops observing his surroundings for a moment. He goes straight to the skill draw. He wants to see if he can land a high-tier skill. After all, a single powerful skill can dictate his survival and how smoothly this entire simulation will go. You have drawn the human mage skill, double cast. Special magic, double cast. Upon activation, your next spell will receive a massive amplification. The effect is doubled. Current life tasks have been issued. Task 1, the ultimate evil goblin. Help your birth mother, the human mage Kyle, complete her revenge. Then, betray her at the last moment and humiliate her. Take her as your slave. Make her relive the agony she once suffered in the goblin nest. Drive her to despair and fail her revenge. Let her life plunge into darkness. Task 2, enemy of the goblin slayer. Host, please protect your birth mother. Complete the revenge. Continuously develop the goblin nest. Expand its scale to a massive size. Eventually, lure the goblin slayer here. Defeat him in a final battle. Task 3, Archmage. Abandon everything before you. Leave this place alone. Go into seclusion. Devote yourself to the study of magic. Become a legendary archmage. Reward, complete one of these tasks. And upon returning to reality, you will inherit the skills from this simulation. You will also gain level retention based on your performance. In addition, gain 2,000 evolution points and a goblin breeding experimental base. This mission is surprisingly fascinating. Ji-Yu-chun remains silent, contemplating these tasks. His intuition tells him something. Mission 3 is simply impossible, even though it is the safest route. It takes far too much time. However, Ji-Yu-chun did not expect Mission 2 to involve an encounter with the goblin slayer so early in this simulation. During his first 2 attempts, he was killed once by the goblin slayer's blade, and the other time, he barely escaped with severe injuries. Now, on the 3rd try, the system actually wants me to kill him. Isn't the Goblin Slayer at the same rank? Among monsters, that is equivalent to C-class. Of course, Ji-Yu-chun felt that the system would not just send him on a suicide mission. The Goblin Slayer in this current scenario most likely is not that powerful yet. As long as I evolve and level up quickly here, there is still a fighting chance. As for the first mission, as Ji-Yu-chun read the description, he realized the true definition of pure evil, acting like a goblin or rather a complete scumbag, enslaving his own birth mother, and forcing her to breed goblins until death. Something so devoid of humanity. Ji-Yu-chun did not dare to even consider it. Then again, again. There must be a reason why such a mission appeared. Ji Yu-chun harbored some doubts about this. After all, he still did not understand his birth mother. The human mage, Kyle. What kind of revenge plot is she actually brewing? I must figure it out to find the right direction for the mission. At that moment, the female mage Kyle finally finished issuing orders to the goblin army. She then walked over to Ji Yu-chun and looked down on him with arrogance. Indeed, Ji Yu-chun's mother this time, Kyle, was about 170 centimeters tall. Among the goblins, she stood out like a crane among chickens. Moreover, she was commanding such a massive goblin army. One could tell at a glance she was a mage of terrifying power, and it was exactly this that left Ji Yu-chun utterly confused. Why on earth was she violated by goblins to the point of giving birth to him? And even now, how did she become the sole leader of this goblin nest? And why is she personally leading an invasion of human villages? These strange actions left Ji Yu-chun deeply puzzled. Facing Kyle, who was staring down at him coldly, Ji Yu-chun took the initiative to salute her. Unexpectedly, she swung her staff directly, viciously knocking Ji Yu-chun to the ground. You trash, I thought I made myself clear. You are not allowed to call me mother. Not now, not ever. Her emotions suddenly flared up violently. Kyle stomped savagely on the fallen Ji Yu-chun. Stomp, 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 she would not stop. Her sharp high heels left bruise after bruise upon Ji Yu-chun's body. Ji Yu-chun's mind went completely blank. He had never encountered a situation like this before. He did not expect his birth mother, his so-called parent in this life, to be so brutally violent toward him. Feeling the blood starting to flow from his wounds, Ji Yu-chun feared he might actually be beaten to death by the increasingly heavy-handed Kyle. Enduring the pain, he hurriedly knelt and bowed his head. I am sorry, Your Majesty. Following Ji Yu-chun's correction, only then did Kyle stop her slender legs from hovering over Ji Yu-chun's head. She ended the beating and coldly spat out a command, now go. Lead the goblin army to invade, pillage the villages, and if you ever utter the word mother again, I will kill you myself.